Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS egress. Contact, I am cleared orbit.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. We are live on the Fringe FM. It is Wednesday, September the 18th, and this is going to be a good show tonight. Our guest is Thomas Sheridan. We're going to go down a few rabbit holes here, and I've already gotten a ton of questions from you guys about the show, and I appreciate you giving me just a few minutes for the late start there. I had to get some technical stuff done, but so we're going to go down a few rabbit holes with Thomas, right? The nature first and foremost. I want to talk about his book that he wrote a while back, and we're going to talk about the nature of evil. Is there really an evil? The nature of psychopaths, also dreams, magic, manifestation, and more with Thomas Sheridan. So tonight we're going to explore the darker side of things, but also we're going to talk about a lot having to do with magic, manifestation, and what's really going on there. I think it's important that we explore the shadow properly. And this came to me by Patrick, and I'm almost certain it was by guest suggestion in the Fringe FM chat, because that's where we've got like a hashtag guest suggestions in there. And so we constantly go in there and look and see what you guys are putting up into that room. And I went over and checked out Thomas's YouTube channel and some of his latest interviews, looked at his book. I'm probably going to grab it tonight and really explore this, because I'm interested in this. I want to know why some of these psychopaths do the things they do, and what is evil, and why is it does it really exist, or is it from a cycle? So I got a ton of questions. We'll get into that here in just a moment. Also, this show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Make sure you go to GetTheTea.com. Take it monthly. Keep yourself cleansed. Keep yourself guarded from intruders, and you got to keep taking this stuff, especially nowadays. I mean, if things keep going the way they are going and we don't fix this, imagine what it's going to be like in like 2045 or something. So you need to keep the stuff in your system. Also, CBD oil really helps too. And if you're going to get that, get the best. AncientLifeOil.com is where you go for that. And also preparewiththefriends.com. So we got everything as far as sponsors go to prepare you for a fallout, as well as keep your body guarded. We just don't sell gas masks yet or anything like that, but I'm working on it. I want to give a shout out to, Barbara, for giving us her support tonight. Thank you so much, Barbara, and all of you guys that have supported this month. We really appreciate it. You can go to lightingthevoid.com, hit that donate button, or grab a t-shirt, hat, all that stuff. We got plenty of swag there, and we're going to be adding new stuff to that soon. You can go to ufoseekers.com and look at the best UFO investigators on the planet, backed and supported by the Fringe FM. And still not backing down on this. There's a lot of picture paragraph, like Tupac says, picture paragraphs are loaded, right? And that's what's going on right now. A lot of picture paragraphs out there talking about how the Navy is saying that there's aliens. And the Navy never said that when it came to the UAP stuff. Matter of fact, they said, we're not saying it's aliens. Now, I don't want to get into that because, if you go to Tim's Twitter at UFO Seekers, you'll see all the information, all the links, all the stuff you need there about disclosure and what's going on in ufology. ufoseekers.com and youtube.com/UFO Seekers. If you've had a sighting, give them a call, 661-UFO-7889. All right, let's get into this. You can tell I'm ready to do this. So, Thomas Sheridan is an author, artist, and filmmaker from Dublin, Ireland, who came to international recognition in 2011 with the book Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath. In recent times, his work has been featured in some of the world's largest media outlets as the interest in his work into serial killers, occult history, and mind control cults continue to grow, and has resulted in Thomas Sheridan becoming a much sought-after public speaker due to his entertaining, if at times hilariously funny and informative style of presentation. He offers a holistic approach to all these topics, and he covers believing that by re-examining everything from art, mythology, the occult, and on to social engineering, that this can equip us with what he terms a conscious firewall. And we'll be discussing that too, in the face of pathological forces. His mantra of Feck, which I could say that, right? Feck em, right? Feck em if they can't take a joke, has become a hilarious call for others to never allow the dark forces of this world to wash over us, as well as to never take ourselves or what we believe in too seriously. Love it. All the way from Ireland. Thank you so much for coming on Lighting the Void, Thomas. It's a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Joe, and it's nice to be here.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting motto, you know, if they can't take a joke, right? Did you get, you have any influence by Robert Anton Wilson by any chance? Was I kind of get that vibe from you.
Oh, big time. Back in the 90s, the late 90s, I lived in New York, and I had quite a few friends who were involved in the hacking scene. And also a lot of his articles, and you were getting fleeting glimpses into him, into things like Wired magazine, when Wired magazine was a good magazine. And along with Terence McKenna, they were very much on the radar at the time. It was almost like he represented a different form of intellectualism, where you didn't necessarily have to be this kind of pompous academic or this self-righteous pundit. He straddled the middle ground between the guy you could be having a chat with in a pub and someone who was highly knowledgeable. And I remember saying to myself, if I was ever going to be in that world, that's the kind of guy I would like to be. So, yeah, very much so.
Yeah, he's. I'm a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of Israel Regardie, Christopher Hyatt. So yeah, I can relate to you in a lot of ways. I will admit though, when it comes to the darker side of things, there are avenues that I'm just afraid to go down, but I'm so curious about, and that's why I'm intrigued by the very first book you wrote, Puzzling People: The Labyrinth of the Psychopath. Did you get into this because you were curious about the nature of evil, kind of like how we are on the show? Because we ask that question all the time. You know, is evil a real thing? Is this just karma? We've gotten to deep discussions about it. What are your thoughts on that?
It was kind of a strange thing. I was working at the time in Wall Street investment banks. I was a graphic designer. I wasn't a communications consultant. I wasn't a money man. And for some reason, I think it was because of a British author called David Yallop, who'd written a book about the Yorkshire Ripper murders in England in the late 1970s and early 1980s. It was a fascinating case because it was kind of encapsulated how they used everything from mind control, social engineering, and basically a hatred of working people. And also that was a big element of it, in order to make this case of a serial killer in the north of England something of a social phenomena. And the same thing happened with the Son of Sam case in New York. And so it got me in those kinds of things, both got me interested. It's a very long story as well. I was also quite young, and I was interested in a group in New York, in the Bronx and Yonkers, called the Process Church of the Final Judgment. And there seemed to be a lot of interesting correlations between cults, serial killers, strange behavior by the governments. And then it got me interested in serial killers as a whole. And I've been reading biographies of people like Ted Bundy and John List. And it dawned on me one day that the company I was working for, or the world that I was working in, and the mindset of a serial killer was exactly the same thing. And so that got me into a kind of a thing. Well, is there a non-murderous serial killer? And then there was a book called books by the likes of such as Harvey Cleckley came along, and then later Robert Hare, and it showed that there are people now. We have to be careful when we use terms such as evil. We'll talk about that later. But there are people who walk this earth, and they're not like other human beings. They don't exist in the same world that the rest of us do, and they're more like predators within the human race. And very often they're not violent, but they do cause tremendous suffering and pain through things like bullying, through things like torturing families, tearing people apart, causing all kinds of problems. And they don't do it for any reason like their feelings are hurt or they're upset or they got problems when they were young kids that left a legacy in their lives that in certain terms of certain later on behaviors. They quite literally do it because I wouldn't say they necessarily enjoy it. They will enjoy it when it works out. But to them, it's just business. This is just how they live. They're almost like a psychological, psychic subspecies that walks amongst us that fits in perfectly well and causes most of the problems, not only on a geopolitical level, but also in families, in communities, in all kinds of things. They just cause mayhem, and it's a subtle form of mayhem that makes life ranging from just a pain in the backside all the way to unlivable.
Okay, and so do you relate this to the world today? As in, I tell people this story all the time too about how when I was working a 9-to-5 job for a tech company, that I literally felt kicked around, and I'm not trying to. It's not a pity party thing, right? It just feels like the structures that we're in today just tear your soul to shreds, man, for real. And it does after a while. That cubicle felt like evil was taking over my life. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I felt like. So I'm just curious. Are you saying that our society is kind of structured that way? Some of our corporations and the way that we do commerce and how we are always on the go and the way this stuff is, that we're pretty much living under a psychopathic type archetype?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. There's no difference between your government, my government, and a major corporation structure, and that of, say, Ted Bundy or John Liss or David Berkowitz. It's the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
fantastic. All right, so because I just felt like when I said that stuff the first time, I was like, maybe I'm just a whiner and I can't handle it, But why do I feel like my soul's being crushed from the inside out? And a lot of people feel that way. They just do.
Well, that's a very important phrase you said. Why does your soul, we'll talk about this later, why does your soul feel crushed? The reason why your soul felt crushed is because your intuition and your psychic instincts were telling you to get the hell out. In the same way that if you were in a dangerous ecological or environmental situation, such as a jungle or something like that, and there were predators around who would eat you, the exact same psychic bioelectrical impulses for your survival were functioning within you inside your cubicle at work in the same way they would if you were in a jungle full of man-eating tigers.
Yeah, it does feel that. Wow, that is such a good comparison. It's perfect, right? It's real. I believe you. So you got a couple of books here, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath and Defeated Demons. I want to stick on this for a minute because there's I'm on Amazon and I'm looking at your bio on the book, and an interesting thing popped up. It says abusive teachers, two-faced politicians and their psychopathic control grid, tyrannical bosses, colleagues from hell. We've all encountered those, right? And here's the one that really got my attention, including lying lovers who use us, then lose us in an instant. That's a big one, and a lot of people do that. And I've talked to a lot of emotionally just raked over people. We've even got a show on the network about it called Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda. Is there evil? Is there a real evil force out there, in your opinion?
Well, let's talk about the nature of evil, okay? There's this is a thing. It's very easy for anyone to say anything that's been done against me has been evil, or it's been black magic, or it's been predatory. The reality is that in life, stuff happens. Mm-hmm. I'll try to watch my language on this show, but things happen, okay? And we are raised within an infantile society whereby we are forced to believe, or we like to assume that we're always the good person. So we can't always go around saying, if this was done to me, that was done to me, she did this, he did this, they did that, and it was evil. It nearly always is far, 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 far more complex than that. We just like simple Oprah, Dr. Phil, instant solutions to make us try and feel better and raise our dopamine levels. But let's talk about evil. Okay, so for instance, say you're trying to feed a family, and you go out there and you see a deer in the woods or whatever, and you shoot that deer. You kill it instantly, take it home and feed your family. That's just survival. It's not good for the deer because the deer has sacrificed its life to feed your family. When you get to something like a slaughterhouse, and I was talking a few months ago to some Brazilian guys who worked in a slaughterhouse here in Ireland, because Irish people won't do that kind of work anymore. And what they described to me was like a scene from hell. It was just a horror. And so the difference between hunting for your meat or having a small farm and raising animals and killing them, and then the meat processing industry, you could definitely say that the meat processing industry is evil. Yet does that make people who eat meat at home and buy it from the supermarket evil? Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. They're kept blind to it. So that's what I'm trying to push across, that the whole thing is a spectrum. You cannot be infantile about it and say he's this, she's that, they're this, they're that. It doesn't work that simple.
Right.
Simply, there's personal aspects of evil. Someone who messed you around in life. Okay. There is a philosophical aspects of evil. The idea that there's a kind of an evil system that's out to oppress me, but that system won't be evil to the people who are on the benefiting end of it. And then there's also the idea of a moral or an inherent evil. I'm not crazy about the idea of morality because that's generally religious based. And if you look at you read, say, the old Bible, well, they got it. The old Bible is a total psychopath. He murders cities. Jehovah is just like is the ultimate serial killer. And so, but yet he's not evil because we're told on a moral framework that he's the God that made everything. He's an all-loving God. So you have that idea, as opposed to human decency, where you may have a situation where there's a war going on, and you have, say, in World War II or something, soldiers come into a town, and they capture some prisoners at the other side, and one of them just wants to shoot them because it's just easier. One of them wants to shoot them because it's just fun, which would probably be evil. And one doesn't want to shoot them, and that's human decency. But yet they may be fighting for a system or an army that's evil in terms of how it's destroyed a town or a city or even its own people. So it's one of these things. It's where it's your personal relationship towards it is the determining factor. Like if you look at the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, the monsters aren't out to kill human beings. The human beings go mad or kill themselves because they come face to face with entities and beings they don't understand. What's driving a man in Providence in the 1920s to blow his brains out, what he's experiencing from another dimension or another planet, is just something from another dimension or another planet living its life. So again, evil does exist, and there's things you can actually say which are real elements of evil, such as horrific, torturous killings. You see individuals who take pleasure in killing another person and torturing them and videotaping it. Absolutely. Then we're really into something that's extremely dark and dangerous. And absolutely, I would have no doubt using the word evil. But because of things like religion, we spread the idea of evil far too wide, to the point where you could have some religious person thinking their neighbor who doesn't go to church on Sundays is evil. We always have to apply maturity.
Yeah, because fantastic. That was an awesome answer. Thank you. Because we get into that philosophical conversation quite a bit. Well, there's not evil. There's just people that are evolved and people that are animal-like. I beg to differ. Jeffrey Dahmer, it's not like a cat that's playing with a mouse here. I mean, this guy was intensely messed up, And when you study something like that, it's almost like, is he evil? Or is it what's influencing him evil, right? And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I do personally believe in a dark force. Now, it may just be doing its job in the universe, right? but it's there nonetheless. What are your thoughts on somebody like Dahmer or Ted Bundy or somebody that really, cooks people and eats them, like that, them kind of folk?
Well, some of them could be psychotic, like the case of Dahmer, and they probably don't know what they're doing. And there's also the possibility that some kind of entity is living inside them. And I'm totally down with that kind of thing, because my own beliefs, I will know well that the occult or magic, whatever you want to call it, is a combination of spiritual and scientific. I've no problem straddling both those worlds. Yes, you could see something like what happened to those poor Swedish girls in Morocco last year when a gang of radical thugs beheaded them, recorded it, and sent the videos to their mothers on their phones as it was happening. There's absolutely no, and they were driven by what? They were driven by the great demon in the sky, the beast from the Middle East, that would somehow has spellbound the human race into doing these things, not just in that religion, but all the other religions that spawned from that thing. And yeah, that's not absolutely 100%. There's no way you could call that anything other than evil. That's exactly what that is. Dahmer could have been psychotic. Other people are psychotic. Ted Bundy, I watched a Netflix documentary on him recently. And if anyone has Netflix and you want to know about this subject better than anything, watch that documentary on Ted Bundy that's on Netflix, and you will get a remarkable insight into, you don't even have to buy my book, it's all there. You can actually see, and this is absolutely true, and well, as far as I'm concerned, you can actually see whatever the entity or personality or daemon or whatever you want to call it inside him, actually physically during particularly one scene where he's being arraigned for the murders, where it's a press conference / arraignment. It's kind of a strange thing, but it's very useful because you can actually see him smirking 1 second, growling the next, pacing back and forth. That's Ted Bundy and some entity inside him, which he really admits is in there. Yeah. Literally trying to have a conversation amongst themselves on how do we deal with this situation and get out of it.
Right. So, wow. Yeah, that is, man, we're up against the break here, but we're going to dig into this a little bit further. If you guys got some questions, please feel free to put them in the Fringe FM chat. You can text in at 501-777-5631. We'll be right back with Thomas Sheridan. Stay with us.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? Cannasense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. Cannasense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and Cannasense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you? I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to, so I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Come, walk through the mossy creek and up the hill. Never mind the flashing lights and otherworldly shadows. They stay hidden within the trees. Come, step up to the shack and begin your journey to the answers that you seek. This is Lady Anne, and you are listening to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM.
Alright everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you be the Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
All right, Thomas Sheridan is our guest tonight. If you would need a site for reference, you can go to his website at thomassheridanart.wixsite.com. And dear, before this break, we were discussing the philosophical ideas, the nature of evil, and the most interesting thing that I like about your book, Thomas, that you wrote, over 10 years ago, or close to 10 years ago, about that is that you relate it to society. The society's doing that to us in that kind of way. So just wanted to bring that up. I know that you've talked about it quite a bit, but something that we've brought up here frequently on the show is shadow work. And when I say that, I don't want people to think that I'm going to go down this dark, negative road of invoking demons and stuff. But what I mean by that is, and maybe you can help me with this, is this stuff doesn't go away. We don't get to a place where I don't care how much light you invoke on yourself to where we don't have to deal with ourselves and these thoughts that are just pegging us in our mind. That's there. It's still there. And I think it causes personality conflicts and it causes psychotic things to happen sometimes. So do you believe that in order to create this conscious firewall that you talk about, that we first need to realize that we have to deal with that? Is that the first thing that you would say to do?
Wow. Listen, the first thing I would say to people who think you should not indulge the dark side of yourself or the world around you because it brings up demons. I've got news for you, and I implore you to listen to this very carefully. If you do not do your shadow work, you will invoke demons. You will invoke demons. Doing your shadow work is what protects you from this. This is what you're doing is you're creating an infantile ego that is unable to transcend challenges that come along later on and impact upon it. Those of you who know about the tarot, it'd be like staying the Fool card forever and going directly from the Fool to the World card and thinking you've done it all. Well, you'd not. You'll be torn asunder because you have not developed through the initiations that life and this cycle of existence that's been outlined by people like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell will push upon you. the hero's journey, as he calls it, the monomyth. If you do not do this, you will be eaten alive. And this is amazing to me that people in 2000 and nearly 2020 are still thinking, oh, I must always be positive. I must always be this. I must always be never be negative. Must never indulge my negative side. Well, let me got news for you. If there's such things as demons out there, and there seems to be something similar to that, they are looking at you with a knife and a fork and wearing a napkin because you are ideal for this. Why? Because you have not built up the psychic defenses in order to deal with this. So therefore you have an infantile ego. And this infantile ego is only designed while your parents and you're being sheltered by your loved ones in society. You are an individual. And once you go out there to the outside big world with this infantile ego of love and light and all is love, you will be torn asunder. And you can take that to the bank. And I'm amazed that you're still thinking like that in this day and age, especially if an adult who's been through life, that's gone through certain changes, divorces, relationship breakups, had been damaged at work, or had lost people you love. If you don't have the shadow inside you, you will become a lunatic and you will feed upon yourself. And some entity, maybe a pathological version of your own daemon, will feed upon you. And I implore people to get over this childlike, self-destructive attitude of everything is love and all is light. I would say if you want to replace that with something more positive, I would replace that with gratitude. When things go well for you in your life, express a sense of internal gratitude. When people do things for you that makes you feel better or makes your life a little easier, express gratitude. But don't be, see, a lot of this comes from your Christian upbringing. I don't care if this offends you. This makes you weak. Turn the other cheek. Love thy enemy. That was all invented by a control system in the Roman Empire about 1800 years ago in order to find a way to control society within people in Rome where people were weak and timid. And what better way than to tell them to turn the other cheek and love thy enemy. So therefore you'll be stomped upon by the biggest enemy of them all, the system, where in reality it should have been like what was there before that. If someone comes at you, you have to protect yourself, no matter what way it happens. And this is where the shadow comes in, understanding that it's a big, bad world out there. It's also a big, beautiful world out there as well. And your engagement with it will be like a sine wave. You will fluctuate between one and the other. And if you don't have the tools to survive both, well, you'll be torn asunder. And it's as simple as that.
And it gets worse and worse, right? I've seen it happen. I've done it myself, where you feel like I'm just going to give everybody love and healing all the time, no matter what they do or say to me. And it's going to work. I know it's going to work. And you find out that it doesn't work, that you get tested and pushed and it gets worse. And you're right. It gets worse and worse.
It bubbles like lava in a volcano about to explode, and it will explode. It'll explode by you having a nervous breakdown. It will explode by you getting some kind of neurological illness. It'll explode by getting cancer. It will explode by becoming an alcoholic or a drug addict. You have to temper it. It's like the old expression, curing depression with chopping wood. You're constantly chopping wood inside your psyche. It's okay to hate someone's guts who's hurt you. It's okay. Doesn't mean you have to kill them. Doesn't mean you have to destroy them. In fact, that's proof that you haven't done your shadow work. What you really do is just walk away and get on with your life and say, well, to hell with them and get on with it. But to sit there going, I love them, I forgive them for their trespasses. They they destroyed my life. They beat me up. They left me a cripple and I can't walk. But
I'm pretty impressed by your passion about this too, because I feel that. And the reason why I feel that way, it's not because I hate folks. It's because the folks that I do love, after I've learned this myself, those people, I watch them just get torn apart. And not only that, they tear themselves apart in their own mind, and they're constantly just beating themselves up 24/7. And I've seen this with my own mother when I was a kid. Abusive people, they keep going back to abusive relationships, and they feel like they got to heal it or something, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the hero's journey because they haven't taken care of the next step. And it's okay to hate someone who's damaged you or hurt you for a while. In fact, if you hate them viscerally inside yourself, I'm not going to say seek revenge by going to kill them or something like that, but deep inside, burn them out, hate them. What happens is you literally change the neurochemical structure inside your brain and you move on. Where if you go, I forgive them, I love them, well, you're never correcting that neurochemical brain structure inside yourself. And guess what? That neurochemical brain structure, instead of, is going to eventually start hating you. And that's where the depression, self-loathing, addictions, and eventual nervous breakdowns come from.
Yeah, and I've seen it happen too with friends and my mother as well. Emotional eating. I've done it myself. You know, you get to feeling bad, and what feels better than just shoving junk food down your throat? And that's just the start of it. There's other people out there that I've talked to in the past and even in the present that will physically this is hard to talk about, but they have to hurt themselves. Does that make sense to you what I'm saying? And this is how I know demons are real. Why would anybody want to hurt themselves? Why would anybody want to cut their wrist or take a knife out and cut their skin or anything? And they know there's something there they got to work on. So knowing that, Thomas, where do we start? Do we start with dream work, meditation? Where would you say is a good place to start?
The first place to start is that accepting that you are not perfect. That's the most important thing of all. Accept that you have lots of faults. There's plenty of things wrong with you. There's lots of things that you do that annoy other people. There's lots of other things that you do are damaging to yourself. And then you say to yourself, well, how do I deal with it? Do I walk away from this? Do I start over again? Whatever. Only you will know this answer. But this is an eternal dialogue you begin with yourself. And this is the most important step of all, is to realize, hey, I'm not perfect. Hey, I am a bit of a screw up. Hey, I did these things that are wrong. And guess what? Move on from there. Because I tell you something, there's no test at the end of the day to say, did you do right or wrong? You will only be judged by the ability in your life to transcend and survive these things. That's just the whole thing. People seem to have this idea that they are perfect somehow, or they will be perfect if they do certain things, if they follow certain codes within society, and they will get there. This is the greatest lie of all time. Be comfortable in your personal deficiencies. Be comfortable in your lack of perfection. Once you have that, you finally have an understanding of yourself. You can take the first step of the neophyte onto as the fool and then move on away from being a child, because then from that point you're not expecting mommy or daddy to look after it for you. You're doing it yourself. Now, yes, dreams are very important. I always tell people the first thing you should do is start taking down a dream journal or a diary. Why? Because your subconscious mind communicates to you through things like dreams and also things like synchronicities. We'll talk about the dreams first. You will have dreams that before I woke up for this show, I had a very interesting dream. I don't really want to talk about it, but it was because and that the reason for this is not because there's anything particularly horrible in it, was because dreams are not like a book. Say to take one dream and say, this dream tells me everything, is like reading one page from a book and saying, I know I've read the whole book. That's why you need to keep a dream journal or a dream diary. You have to note and keep records of these dreams as they progress. Then after a while, maybe 3 months or so or more, but it should be ongoing, you will start to get a better insight into what your subconscious mind is trying to tell you. It's giving you a conversation. It's giving you conversations about your health, your personal health. It's giving you conversations about your psychological health. It's giving you conversations and insights regarding every aspect of your life, including, and very importantly, people around you and things that might be not good for you or not healthy to be a part of. And you may have one bad dream about someone you might know and say, oh, he's not a nice person. But you must develop it, because you might not get that dream again. And the dream may just simply be saying, just be careful. Just be careful. That doesn't mean you have to hate them or turn against them or do anything. The dreams may be telling you, just be careful. And when you do this after a while, and I can guarantee you this is 100% true, your dreams start to become prophetic, because your subconscious mind does not operate in the same space-time paradigm that you do, and therefore it can see the future. It can literally see the future. And because the subconscious mind developed at a time before humans developed vocal cords and the ability to do language, it expresses to us what we need to know in allegory, metaphor, and archetypes. And then you start to be able to read the world in an archetypal, synchronistic, metaphorical, and allegorical form. And when you get to that point, you're literally in a much better place in the world. You see the bigger picture. And what you do then is you work within a world of non-localized, non-specific understandings of the environment, yourself, and the world around you. And you will find not that you're a great magician, not that you're a fantastic healer, not that you have special powers. You'll have one simple thing. Your life will be easier, because this is putting oil on the wheels of your consciousness. And that's really why you need to do this stuff. Life will be easier.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I talk about the occult and magic on the show quite a bit. And what's been happening lately, Thomas, is people have been hitting me up about, what books do I read? Is this safe or that safe? And if you're listening, it's not just you. There's a lot of people that do it. I want to express to people, and I want your opinion on this as well, too. You don't have to step into a magical system to work this stuff. There's many ways to work through these things. You don't have to practice magic. It's just something I resonated with. Do you believe that as well, that there's a lot of ways that you can deal with this? There's not one specific path, or you have to practice magic, or you have to be even super spiritual. What are your thoughts on that?
No, you don't have to do anything like that. You don't have to join magic groups. You don't have to follow grimoires. You don't have to. You can if you want, and good luck to you if you do. That's your own business, but you might find it interesting, or some people do it because they like the historic or the performance theater aspects of things like Golden Dawn rituals or Thelema rituals, and that's okay. I can tell you for a fact, one of the reasons you don't need these big ritualistic systems and ceremonial systems anymore is because we have an abundance of energy now in the world that they didn't have in the Victorian times. In Victorian times, they didn't even have electricity. That's when a lot of these occult and ceremonial systems come from. They had gaslighting. The cities were dark at night. You traveled around by horse and carriage, steam train if you were lucky. Nowadays, we have the internet. We have an abundance of energy. Energy is everywhere, from rock concerts to roller coasters to thrill-seeking to you name it. It's all there, to internet video games. You want energy, it's easy to procure it now. So therefore, you don't need to go to the point of building up an energetic or psychic charge in you in order to get yourself to a certain magical state in order to charge a sigil. What you could have spent hours doing with a group of people dressed up inside a building performing all these ceremonies 100 years ago, in order to charge, say, a sigil or a seal, you can hold that seal in your hand now and go bungee jumping and look at the seal at the moment when you're at the cusp of death. All your psychic energy is then poured into that. We have a thing today that they didn't have in the past, and that's an abundance of energy. And this is why you don't necessarily need to do that. You can if you want. Some people even do it for the social aspects. Some people even do it because they like doing it. But the one thing is that you must always even if you're doing a kind of a chaos magic system, which is basically what I'm describing now, where everything is permitted and there are no rules to an extent. You still have to be like a scientist, because magic is art and science, and you have to monitor the results as they're going along. No, you do not have to do anything like this, just like you don't have to have a single spirit. You don't even have to have heard the have known of the word spiritual in order to be spiritual. It's something that you can develop yourself from your own life.
Right. I agree totally. I don't know why I'm drawn to the older traditional systems. I just feel like I feel drawn to it. It works for me. I guess it just does. But I'm interested in your point where you're talking about abundance of energy. Do you think that we created this energy that's here now, or that we're in some state of just process of evolution type thing, or did we kind of manifest all this energy and that's why it's here now?
Before I get to that, I just want to say the reason why you like the older traditional systems is the same reason some people like classical music or folk music, and some people like electronic techno music. It's personal preference, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, that's all. That's all that is. It's just personal preference, and great stuff. Now, regarding the energy thing, it's twofold. I absolutely do believe in the concept of things like the Kali Yugas that you have in the Vedic world, or you have cycles, and this is very common all over many non-Abrahamic pre-Christian cultures, is the idea that the cycle of human consciousness, which directs also the cycles of nature, the cycles of the cosmos, is also connected to a secular system that rotates and puts us in what in the Vedic world they will call yugas. Now, that doesn't mean you're fated if you're born into, say, the Kali Yuga, where things are traumatic and things are being revealed and darkness is being unleashed. It doesn't necessarily have to mean live like that all the time. You, as an individual, as a conscious specific soul, you can operate within the system to serve yourself, to help yourself, to enrich yourself. Like, for instance, if you were born during World War II and say you live in London and the Luftwaffe are dropping bombs on you, you can either say, oh, it's the Kali Yuga says I have to sit here until a bomb hits me, or you can do something like, well, I'll move around to different places, or I'll try to go live in the countryside and survive it. That way, World War II, which is a particular kind of Kali Yuga at the moment, has a less chance of damaging me than it would people who just sit back and accept it. You have free will. Always remember that. You have free will. Now, this abundance of energy has come about from, well, basically the greatest magical process that's ever been developed. The reason why Western magic changed during the Enlightenment was because it turned to science. Alchemy became chemistry. Astrology became astronomy. And the greatest magical working, remember, magic is an art and a science, created in the West was the development of electricity, the harnessing of the electron. It existed nowhere else. It's only existed in the Western societies. Europe and America was the only place where electricity was cultivated and is now the most powerful force in our lives. We're talking because of it. And why this makes electricity so powerful and in a form of an energy is because we ourselves are electric beings. Our heart rate creates an electrical impulse that works our nervous system. Our nervous system is the interface between our consciousness and the exterior matrix, quantum mainframe world, whatever you want to call it, the living dream. But that's what does it, the nervous system. And when Western scientists, and remember, a lot of these people were occultists as well, or they may have called themselves atheists, but like Tesla, they spoke in very occultic, magical language. And people like Alexander Graham Bell and Crookes and Marconi and many other people involved in this stuff were involved in spiritualism and occult and magic. In fact, the development of radio, particularly AM radio, or what they call it medium wave back then, was also called broadcast radio back then, was driven by the need to connect with quote unquote spirits. The Western magical tradition is the harnessing of the electron. The turning of flowing rivers into through turbines to power cities, wind, water, solar. This is what we've done. This is our greatest legacy. And we have filled the world through this Western magical tradition of the development of electrical and electronics in order to fill this world with vast amounts of energy that everyone can use. So yes, it's a combination of both. It doesn't happen by accident, but just there's no difference between when the first people rubbed two sticks together and started a fire to today when somebody can build a mainframe quantum computer that can connect the world in seconds. It's the same thing.
Wow.
The abundance and growth of energy.
Wow, okay. So that's the first time I've ever heard that the Western magical system is really about the electron. It's about energy. It's about using the elements and manifesting energy. That's interesting. I'm not saying it the way you did, but I got what you were saying. That's pretty fascinating. Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. And there's so many. Well, my background was in electronic engineering initially. And I can tell you for a fact, in my book, Sorcery, the Invocation of Strangeness, I talk about an experiment when I was in college where I created a high-pass filter. And at the same time, I was practicing ritual magic through David Conway's book, Magic, a Primer. And at the same time, I was in the lab doing lab work, building these circuits using the same components, the same solder, the same schematic diagrams. And whatever way my nervous system was attenuated from doing ritual magic, I was getting different readings on the oscilloscope than everyone else in the class. And I remember the lecturer saying, well, Mr. Sheridan, it looks like you have superpowers. Well, he was absolutely right. I did. I charged my nervous system through rituals and through various invocations. And this is, if you look at electronic diagrams such as schematics, drawings for particular components, say a vacuum tube, what we call a valve here, transistors, or even many others, they all appear all over seals and sigils. There are so many sigils. If you look at the Lesser Key of Solomon, those 50 sigils, or 72 sigils, wherever they are, they look exactly like electronic component schematics. I point that out in my book as well. It's almost like magic from day one has been a trajectory towards the development of the electric being, the electric desire.
Wow. Yeah, you're right about that. I was thinking about some other ones too, like Abramelin and stuff. It does look like, it does look like that. Fascinating. We'll be right back. We got to take our break here. We're with Thomas Sheridan. You can call in at 1-800-588-0335. And I've got some questions that I'm going to play over there to you too, Thomas, that some people sent. And we'll be right back.
Okie doke.
And you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Get the Tea is the #1 cleansing tea in America. We cleanse you with organic ingredients, and when used daily, you can increase your energy. Cleanse from intruders that set up camp in your colon. Cleanse your colon and feel the difference. Colon cleanses can be uncomfortable. Not Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea is mild yet truly effective. Cleanse your insides every day. Easy to make, easy to use, and feel the results. Are you sold? Okay, then here's how to order. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Look for our specials on the front page. Get the Tea also carries top-rated supplements for those who care about their health naturally. Again, log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com and feel the results. And for those of you that arm yourself with information, come to our webinar every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can sign up at getthetea.com.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM. And visit the website, thefringe.fm, to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Alex X.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. Please visit me at johnpolkmedia.com and visit my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday on thefringe.fm.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
All right, so I got to talk about this more. Earlier, before the break, you were discussing magic or traditional Western systems are kind of structured in a way that electricity, like it's conducive to the idea of electricity and how it works. Now that's fascinating because we talked to Wal Thornhill on the program too about the electric universe, and there's so much that they look at how that would make sense. Now that's a pretty deep subject there, but real quick too, before we get into the questions, I want to tell you guys something. The right website is the one I gave you before works, but the best website to go to is mossuponstones.com. Right? That's the best website. It's got everything there, and that's where you want to go for tonight's reference. And there's a couple of YouTube channels. One is Open Source Occult TV and Beyond Room 313. Those are both on YouTube as well. So I'm glad I got that corrected. But Thomas, yeah, I've noticed that with the other energies too. Now, I wanted to talk to you about things like the elements real quick, and then we'll get back into dreams because I know everybody wants to talk about that. I've noticed when I've done shadow work, things like emotions, the pent-up emotions that we have that we don't let pass through because we're taught, it's you're a wuss if you cry, or control your anger, you shouldn't get angry at all. Isn't that kind of messing up the current, though? Shouldn't we let it come through feel it, and then let it pass.
Yeah, but we also have to taper it. You can't let it go to extremes because some people are unable to process emotions correctly. They go on smear campaigns. They become mentally unhinged. They go screaming. They end up destroying themselves. They end up destroying their lives because they don't taper it. It's that the rage is valid. The response is valid. It's the reaction that we have to be careful with. So this is why you see these videos on YouTube of people exploding in the office one day, is because they didn't let it out in increments, or they didn't do something much more healthy and go and, I don't know, buy a few things from the store and smash them with a hammer. There's lots of ways of expelling energy from yourself. Is when you don't expel that energy, that's what happens. And the important thing is to get it out that way, to get it out. You see these things like, that's how you do it. This is how people become insane, is because they don't taper or attenuate the energy pouring out of them. They can, for whatever reason, they can't control it, and they end up destroying themselves. It's much better, and then doing things they regret. We've all done them. We've all been there. We've all lashed out at people. We've all been pissed off. We've all been hurt. But the important thing is, as it's going on, to try and walk away and keep it calm. Of course, there are people who have certain issues with them where they have to follow you and attack you, continue, and they're constantly prodding you because they can't deal with themselves, or they want answers to questions that you can't give them. And this kind of thing. The important thing is just to taper it, to balance it. But I got news for you. If tough shit, sorry, my apology.
You're right.
Tough whatever. If
tough
it happens,
shit.
Because because you've got a learning process in your life. I've got a learning process in my life, and if it blows up in your face and it all goes wrong, well, you can't sit there going, rainbows and unicorns make it better again. You have to say, well, I screwed up and that's it. Back to stage one. Get on with your life. End of story. And this is what's wrong today, especially why things like that social media and the internet, it causes rumination. It causes this, that, and the other. I don't care about how people feel about things in their own life. I know how I feel about mine. My loved ones, I want to make them as happy and as safe as possible, and I don't want to do anything that may damage them. But at the same time, too, look, this is a lot of this comes from this love and light thing. A lot of people aren't honest, direct to people in situations, and this is another kind of shadow. Instead of being direct and honest, they hide things. They play mind games, and it's not going to work forever. Be direct, be honest right from the start. It's not always easy because a lot of people don't do this because they're afraid of hurting somebody, and that's okay. But there's a point where it comes along where it has to come out, and this is where all the pain and suffering comes from. People who stay in relationships that are not working is because I don't want to hurt the other person. Well, I got news for you. You'll hurt the other person and yourself much worse down the road if you bottle it up. I don't like my job, but I'm going to buckle down and do this job. I hate this office. Well, it's better to hate the job and deal with it. Maybe on the weekends go nuts or something. I don't know, throw yourself off bungee cords or something to burn that adrenaline out. Find a way to manage it, attenuate it, deal with it, but don't wait for the volcano to explode. Because it's and don't blame yourself if it does either, because we're all human at the end of the day. It's how you. It's right. It's how what works for you works for you. But remember, there's what will be done cannot be undone, and therefore you have to try. And this is another thing to learn to attenuate and learn to get through this thing called life as easy as possible.
Yeah, I think you got to have I take the more the Rocky mentality of it, where I'm not like Apollo Creed, where I'm as precise with my shots, but I keep getting knocked down and I go right back at it. And some people will say, "Well, Joe, you're like Jordan Peterson. You're abruptly honest and too quick and harsh and coarse and this." And I'm thinking, it doesn't feel that way to me, though. I feel like I'm just talking to you. And honestly, with the lies and all this stuff going on, it's not a moral thing with me. I'm just too lazy to do it because I don't want to cover the stuff up. It's just too much work. So
we live in an age where honesty and directness is considered an evil thing by the control system. Look at political correctness. Political correctness basically says you shall not be honest. You shall not be honest. You should not present your feelings as they are inside you right now about this person, place, situation, or thing. You must bottle it up. Well, I got news for you. That's eventually going to blow up in something that's going to be very bad for the people who are trying to keep the lid on things. Because you can't. That's the ultimate shadow in society at the moment, is political correctness. If you want to talk about black magic, if you want to talk about black magic, there's no greater black magic force on this earth right now than political correctness, because it is anti-human, it is anti-consciousness, and it is anti everything that we should strive for as a species. It tells us that we cannot be whom we're supposed to be. That doesn't mean we all become a bunch of racists, a bunch of sexists, a bunch of abusers. Right. That's just because we do have an obligation to not hurt other people if we can help it. But we should not be in a situation where we go, I can't say this because it's politically incorrect. That's shadow as well. That's you hexing yourself.
Yeah, it's not really conducive to the spirit to have to walk on eggshells all the time. I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry. But I have become more aware of things like you talk about, to be more aware of the cause and effect, right? Like you said, because once something's done, you can't undo it. So it's all about picking your battles too, right?
Yeah, and it's also about who does it serve. I'm not going to get cancer because of some purple-haired, transgender, bi-curious Marxist college professor says I can't say or think a certain thing. Sorry, who put you in charge? This kind of thing. It's like, that's okay. If you, Mr. College or they college professor want to live like this, great, that's great for you. I'm very, very happy that you found that in your life. But don't be trying to mandate it on the rest of us just because it's your lifestyle. That's black magic. You're pushing your black magic on me. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's a bit, to me, that is too. It's a bit, it's abusive. If you want to talk about abuse, that's abusive, right? Forcing people into your mindset so they can't say or think what they want. That's just crazy.
I think it was Walter Mackinner who said that the desire to save humanity is really a repressed desire to control it.
Yeah.
And that's what political correctness is.
I also like what you said earlier too about, and I know we're getting philosophical here, but I also like what you said earlier too about cut yourself some slack. Even when you mess up, just don't beat yourself up. Just cut yourself some slack. That's life. Stuff happens. Yeah.
And if people still piss you off, that's do it. Get it out there. Who cares? I'm not interested in going through the pearly gates. I don't believe in any of that stuff. So I'll deal with the consequences in terms of karmic cycles or whatever, or reincarnation. I'll do it that way. But I'm sorry, I'm not interested in being, I love you, I forgive you, I'll be your friend forever. We'll see how that works out. I'll work with that on an individual basis. We'll see how that works out. I'll modify my behavior if you modify yours. If you don't, well, then you've got to learn. And it's as simple as that. I'm sick and tired of this whole thing of be nice to everyone, be kind to everyone. I'm sorry, that's subjective. We'll see. That's the word I like to use. We'll see.
Yeah, but you don't seem, and here's the truth of it all. You don't seem like an angry guy that just wants to hurt people. You're just being true to your nature. You don't seem like a bad guy at all, and they want you to think that when you're honest. That's true. That's so true.
I'm the most laid back, easygoing, okay, let's have a laugh person you would ever meet. That's because when someone pissed me off, I said, you pissed me off. Don't do it again.
Right, yeah.
And that's it. I didn't bury it inside myself. And that's the way it is. I mean, I'm an incredibly easygoing person, really laid back. Anyone who hangs out with me knows that I'm always telling jokes, doing funny voices, doing satirical things, taking a laugh out, taking the piss, as we say in this part of the world. Yeah. And I've got news for you. That's why the Jester is the last one to always be killed in the court. That's why the Joker's the last card always put back in the deck. Because if you can take, feck 'em if they can't take a joke. If you take life too seriously all the time, there's a place and a time for everything. But basically, you look. This is an absolutely beautiful planet. Most people on it are wonderful. Nature is gorgeous to look at. Flowers grow. In America now, you have this beautiful autumnal fall leaves appearing. Get out there and enjoy it. Smell the roses. You don't have to live like they want us in a state of agitation and anger all the time, because that's not healthy. Fear is fear is not the same thing as anxiety. Fear is the fear to survive. You turn it off when you don't need it. Anxiety is what they want. They want you constantly anxious.
Yeah.
They want you neurotic. They want you neurotic and they want you anxious. Why? Because you're then an easier target for them to hit with their things like their political correctness, their evil political system that doesn't change nothing, all the false hopes they give you of like everything from, we're going to change things, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to have whistleblowers, we're going to have WikiLeaks, and that's all false. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is you and your loved ones and what you can do for them, and yourself is the noble, virtuous path.
Yes, 100% agree. I've got a question here, and this is actually a text in. This is a question that a lot of people have asked me, and I don't know the answer to, and maybe you do because you've had more experience with it, and I think they're wanting to know your personal experience. When it comes to invoking things like demons or angels, a lot of people ask me, well, do they actually show up, or is it just a part of yourself or in your mind, or what really happens? Do you see something in a mirror or whatever? And what I tell them always, Thomas, is that everybody that's ever told me about this, and I've had quite a few magicians on the show and occultists, they all tell me different things. I wonder what your take is on it, or your experiences with that is.
I think it's all those things. Even if you manifest a Lovecraftian entity in front of you, or an entity from the Goetia, or a Hindu, a Vedic entity in front of you, or Batman, if you're a chaos magician, or John Lennon, floating in your room, is that them? No. It's an avatar of an energy force and a consciousness being that's somehow connected to you, that's somehow disconnected from you, that may have something to do with our daemon, which Anthony Peake has written a fantastic book on and talks quite a lot about, that there's the idea of this, what the Greeks called the genius, the other part of ourselves, the other aspect of ourselves. It seems to be that almost building a resolving of what we expect. So if you want a Middle Eastern demon, you get a Middle Eastern demon. If you want a Lovecraftian demon, doesn't matter if it's fiction, the Necronomicon never existed, you'll still get them. You'll get Batman. You'll get whatever you want. If you sit there enough saying Humpty Dumpty fell on a wall during the right psychological and psychic mindset, Humpty Dumpty will appear. It's just how it is. You're seeing an image, you're seeing a video, you're seeing a phantom. You're seeing the same thing in your waking life that you see in your dream life. Is it real? Yes. Is it not real? Yes. It's beyond our comprehension. But the fact is, you can bring these things forward. Now, this is the important thing. How you relate to them is what really, really matters. Now, about a few years ago, I have a video on one of my YouTube channels called How to Capture a Demon, where I went to a notorious quote-unquote haunted house near here, and I created basically a device in a glass jar in order to capture an entity. And I got it. I got it. And it seemed to be two things inside that jar. And I did a show about it, and it seemed to be a conversation between two distinct things. And eventually it dawned on me, what I probably caught was some kind of spiritual wildlife. Just like there's wildlife, animals that live out there, there's also spiritual wildlife. And what the Middle Eastern people call the jinn seems to be what this spiritual wildlife is, because it seems to want to live away from human beings and what they call old haunted houses, mine shafts, graveyards, secluded, out of the way places. So we can, I think for certain, whatever the jinn is, the Middle Eastern entity, that's definitely seems to be distinct from humans. That's definitely distinct from humans. But other ones, I don't know about. Like, for instance, one man's demon is another man's grey alien. Again, it's a cultural and personal resolution of what you're expecting at the time.
Yeah, you're so right about the jinn too. We've only had one person on the show talk to us about that. It was Nineveh Shadrach, and he's kind of done a lot of exclusive work. And I don't know. I've never had any experiences with him, but he says the same thing. He says the jinn do manifest things. They'll make the room hotter. They'll cause poltergeist activity to happen. They're something totally different. Yeah, fascinating stuff there.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But the one entity I'm absolutely 100% sure of is distinct from us is definitely the jinn.
So you trapped an entity almost like Solomon did in the brass vessel. Was it kind of the same thing?
Yeah, the video is called How to Capture a Demon, and I called it the Jinn Jar. And the reason why is because this Nasheen house, and there's a video about it on my Beyond Room 313 channel, where the owner of it, a person called Phoebes, was a wealthy Anglo-Irish family, and they started collecting Oriental objects and mummies and so on from ancient Egypt, and made a museum in the house in the gallery. And then he apparently started messing around with spiritualism or occultism, and these things came out of this is a whole other subject. You could do a whole show on this. But these things definitely originate in the Middle East, but they seem to be flying all over Europe and America. They're coming, and I'm talking to people who were in the Gulf Wars, service people who were in both the U.S. military and other NATO forces, and they tell you that they believe they've all seen these things or felt these jinn presences. I'm sure some of your readers or listeners who have been out there who are service personnel in the Gulf will tell you they've had these jinn-like experiences in the desert or old ruined cities. They seem to be coming into the West more and more through things, even in things like service equipment that's being brought back, perhaps even possessing former service personnel who served in the Gulf Wars. And this is what Gulf War syndrome and the post-traumatic stress is really about. We don't know, but one thing is for sure, they are growing all over the world, or they're moving. I don't know how they replicate and they multiply, but there's always seems to be a combination of Westerners involved in either a military or an occultic situation involving objects and artifacts and locations from certain areas of the Middle East that seem to energize and bring them over to this part of the world. Yeah, absolutely. This is a big subject. I barely touched on it myself. Yeah. I'm currently working on a documentary about H.P. Lovecraft, the writer. I believe in his childhood, I believe that he may have had interactions with the jinn, and these became his pantheon of Cthulhu mythos and greater gods. And this is how they developed within his own fiction, quote unquote. And yeah, this is a huge subject, but yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have no idea about it. It does intrigue me quite a bit too. One last question here before we're up against our news break. I wanted to get into with you because I know that you're an artist, a satirist. You're also a musician, right? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I've been playing guitar for years.
And I wanted to ask you just kind of briefly, and then we can get into it when we come back, as far as how we come into our higher self, or whatever you want to call it, whatever anybody wants to call it, by creativity, by art, music, and expression. And how important do you think that is? Do you think everybody should express themselves through something? Because I kind of believe that, but others have told me, well, maybe people don't have to. But I think we're kind of built that way, that we really want to, deep down.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean you have to play guitar. It doesn't mean you have to play keyboards or learn anything like that. You can express it in things like going out into the woods and just observing nature. You don't have to actually have the tools and implements to do it. I think things like notebooks and journaling is a wonderful way of doing it. You go down to the woods where you live or the park and take a journal down with you and observe and date. Today, the tulips came out. There was red tulips, there was yellow tulips. I noticed also today a dragonfly for the first time. It was 3 p.m. They've never seen them in this park before. Why was the dragonfly there? Here was the colors of it. That's another way of doing it. You don't have to learn how to play guitar or anything, but it's a good, bloody good way of doing music. Is a fantastic way of doing it. So is visual imagery and cinema and everything else. But yes, everyone has a creative aspect inside them. And you do this by thinking about it, by contemplating it. Remember, like you create a beautiful piece of music or a sort of a piece of music or a painting, whatever, that takes you a certain place. It's not necessarily the notes and the sequence and all that. It's how you related to it. And if you can get someone else to relate to it in the same way, well, then you've created a piece of magic that has moved beyond yourself.
Fantastic. All right. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to get to the questions I talked about. I got a couple of actually questions that were sent to me vocally from SpeakPipe and as well as Messenger. We'll be right back with Thomas Sheridan. Stay with us.
The Fringe FM.
Hello, lovers of the night and the Fringe FM. It's Mystic Mary DeCina here.
And I'm Joe Roop, host of Lighting the Void. If you haven't heard our Cosmic Conditions show every new moon, it's grown wildly popular, just as I thought it would.
I want to take a moment to tell all of you that I'll be here live on the Fringe FM, 9 p.m. Pacific and the midnight hour Eastern, to give each of you an in-depth look at yourself through the stars and Mother Earth.
Psychic skeptic or faithful believer, you're in for a fun, insightful, and no-frills broadcast. You're going to experience a raw and real reading with true expertise alongside a 35-year seer.
So make sure you're on time Friday, September 27th, 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern. Savvy?
For your personal one-on-one reading with Mary DeCina, visit maryducina.com, MaryDucina.com.
Hey, Google. I would like to become more intelligent about the unknown world around us, but I don't have time to read or go to school because I work all the time. What do you recommend?
Try listening to Lighting the Void. It's the best way to become more intelligent about the unknown world around us. Besides, I happen to think Joe Roop is the most handsome voice in radio. Listen Monday through Friday 9 p.m. till midnight Pacific time on the Fringe FM. Plus, you will hear a bonus feature called The Stranger Than Fiction News, reported by Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer. With all this information in one location, you are guaranteed to be more attractive to others in your social circle because you'll beam with intellectual wisdom.
Yeah, I think I'll try that.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to ancientlifeoil.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The U.S. Federal Reserve has cut interest rates by a quarter point for the second time in 2 months. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's ordered new sanctions on Iran as tensions between the two countries continue to escalate following airstrikes on Saudi oil facilities. And the UN says tackling climate change will be a key focus for next week's meeting of world leaders at the General Assembly in New York.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
You're listening to the Fringe FM, and I'm Michael Deacon reminding you can find my show right here on the Fringe FM every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or by going to michaeldeacon.com. The choice is yours.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
All right, Thomas Sheridan is our guest tonight. Also, don't forget that just a couple of weeks, Lady Ann and myself will be at the Arkansas Paranormal Expo, so make sure you make it out if you're around and come say hi to us. And also, don't forget as well that the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is coming up after the program. Okay, so I got a question here for you that I'm going to shoot to you, and I believe this is from this is from Messenger. I get questions from all over the place, so I'm going to play it because it's kind of a complex question, and we'll see what your answer is here. This is from Cortana Infinity.
Okay, so Thomas was talking about avatars and comedy on one of his most recent videos on his YouTube channel, Open Source Occult TV. And so if a person can create an avatar of themselves and have all the charisma magic directed toward that, whether it be good or bad, and they direct it towards, this avatar, could they create an avatar of another person and then, could they, one, and two, how does said person that the avatar is created of get out of it? Because that's a little situation that's going on too. And I'm not talking about a voodoo doll or something or a puppet. I'm talking about more in the line of the, like a CGI being. A CGI representation of that person. Say if it was in a video game. And this particular person who created the avatar of, me, is very obsessive over it. Maybe I should just call in. And how do I get loose from this soul tie?
Maybe you should call in. It's 1-800-588-0335. That's an interesting question. That's some chaos magic stuff going on there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's an amazing question. I know, Cortana. It's nice to hear her voice finally. Yeah, as we move into electronics and the digital age, this is something that's going to become a bigger deal. They're going to be able to, this is definitely a kind of a pathological chaos magic to create. It is a lot like a voodoo doll, except it exists in the virtual world. You could create, when you create an avatar of somebody in something like a video game, and it's the power is not in naming it or saying, like, if someone wants to make a video game of me and making it look just like me and calling me Thomas Sheridan, it will not harm me, because what it does is it feeds my charisma. But if they create a fictional avatar where a consciousness or a psychic or a symbolic representation is placed of that within me, then I cannot control it because it's not me. Of course, it won't work for me because I've got certain psychic defenses and I know how to deal with these things. But the average person, oh yeah, absolutely. And this has been going on forever. I even heard stories years ago when people who played Dungeons and Dragons, when they did character development, if someone they didn't like, they actually would make them into one of the characters and give them a name like Lord something or Wizard this or whatever. And amazingly, things that happened to them on the Dungeons and Dragons table to their character or their avatar was happening to the person in real life. There was a lot of truth to that thing, that when people said that Dungeons and Dragons had an element of real magic to it. Absolutely it did, but only if the person knew how to do it, to utilize it. Well, you can make magic from just about anything, but that was a powerful one. And history is full, and entertainment and theatre and art is full of this thing of, you can do it for good and bad. You can create an avatar of a person you have an attraction to, and then kind of pour your desire for that person in your life into that avatar. There's lots of things you can do like that. How do you break from it? Well, as soon as you're aware of it, you've broken from it. That's the whole thing. Because this is the whole thing with sorcery, is once if you say to someone, I curse you, it won't work because they know. It's all about secrecy. So Cortana, if this has been done to you and you know about it, it has no effect on you because you know about it. Other than it's annoying you, the stupidity or the impact upon your freedom or whatever, your peace of mind. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If it's done in secrecy, it can work. It can work. But all again, it's like magic is an art. So it's some people are good at it, and some people are rubbish at it. You can. The fact you know about it shows you can break from it. You are broken from it.
All right, cool. That's a good question, and thank you for asking that, Cortana. Yeah, see, I don't understand. I mean, I understand what she's talking about, the chaos magic and how it works, right? So these are just fundamental things that work kind of like behind the scenes in the system.
It's like computer hacking.
Right.
It's like computer hacking, but you're doing it to the matrix, to the quantum world, to the five sense reality, than doing it to software. But that's what it's like. It's hacking.
From the text in line here, how does magic cross over into art and dreams? That's what we were talking about before the break. How does it cross over into art and dreams? I guess you'd have to take one of those at a time, huh?
Yeah. Well, how it comes over into art is when you're creating a piece of art, where it's a piece of music or it's painting or it's a drawing or it's poetry or whatever, a piece of theater, there's a point where you're in the zone, where you're no longer yourself, where the actual creative process and the art itself has taken over. And this is why ceremonial magic is so artistic. It's a lot of, like the rites of Lucius and the heavily involved in theatrical ideas of magic. This is where that comes from, that it puts you in the zone. And when you're in the zone, you're getting your energy or your psychic insights, your intuitions and so on, the voices from beyond, your daemon coming directly to you because you're in the zone. It's the same thing in dreams. What's the difference with that? Well, we're just getting insight. We spoke about it earlier on. You're just getting insights from the subconscious mind. Magic, I'll tell you one thing though, by you get better at magic. Remember, magic is an art. It's a talent. Well, not a talent. It's an art we can all develop. And paying attention to your dreams is a very, very powerful way of getting into that.
Right. Yeah. People ask me about the simple thing. When is something going to start happening with the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and this kind of stuff? And I said, well, there's some books on that, the art of ritual and stuff, because people just repeat it, especially if you're a ceremonial magician. It feels boring. But if you give yourself into the whole setting, almost like, Crowley was good at it. With all his faults or whatever people want to say, if you listen to some audios of Crowley going into it, he understood that, the theater aspect of it. And doesn't that tap into like the female energy or whatever when you do that? Doesn't that create the force?
Well, Crowley had to do that because he came from a time again when there was less energy. So that's why his stuff worked so well back then. That's why the whole ceremonial, the dress up, the whole theatrical performance that he actually really got from the Golden Dawn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, like William Butler Yeats and Bram Stoker, they were all poets and writers and involved in the theatre. Bram Stoker was a theatrical agent of a guy called Henry Irving, was the biggest actor of his day. So he would have known the theatre inside out. And that's where that came from. About the female and male energies, I don't know about that. I don't know. I think if you're born male, you're male for all eternity. Right? And if you're female, you're female for all eternity. I think that's basically what they believe in the Vedic world, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, if you look at cultures that proactively involve themselves with reincarnation, boys always seem to come back as boys, and girls always seem to come back as girls. I don't know what that's about, but that just seems to be how it is.
All right. Here's a good one. Deep question from the text in line. Are we dreaming ourselves into and out of existence?
Yes. To a point.
That's a freaky thought.
One of the philosophical thoughts, contemplations during the early days of quantum mechanics was that, will we destroy the universe by looking too deep into it? There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, if you look at things like, you look at the CERN Hadron Collider, the biggest machine that's ever been built by humans that uses colossal amounts of power. I've been there. Takes up a whole side of a mountain near Geneva in Switzerland. What does it look for? It looks for nothing. The biggest machine to look for nothingness. And this is why they go looking, they find their quark, strangeness, and charms after they found, it all began with the Greeks with the atomists and atoms model, and then it ends up with quark, strangeness, and charm, and now they're looking at Higgs bosons, and they're now looking for a machine that will look for something smaller. That's the danger, that we're ultimately, there's two ways of looking at it. You can ultimately, this is nothing. You can take comfort from that, like I do, or you can look at it and say, "Oh my God, how will my ego and my self-identity exist in a universe that ultimately doesn't exist?" Well, that's your problem. You've got to find a way to deal with it. Maybe that's the great question of them all: how to resolve being a fleeting moment in a dream that was never dreamt.
Wow. Yeah, see, you just expressed, I believe, in my opinion, mankind's most deep-seated fear.
The biggest neuroses, that you don't matter. You don't matter. I put that in my Lovecraft documentary that I'm currently will be out by Halloween. Is what really terrified people about Lovecraft's mythos and worldview is that you don't matter.
Yeah, that's a freaky thought. But if there's a lot of astral travelers out there, including Monroe and others, that have talked about how they would try to help trapped beings in those realms, and that he would grab them by the hand and take them somewhere, and they would just disappear and dissipate. So we don't really know. You can study this stuff all the time, but you get to the top of the Kabbalah, the Ein Sof, or whatever, there's something there that's emptiness that we don't know about, that we're definitely afraid of, for sure.
I think I definitely would be, the closest thing that's described it to me would be, say, things in the Vedic world, like the Bhagavad Gita, that ultimately we are all either an eyeball or an ear of God, and with the universe observing itself and creating itself and looking back at itself, which is a very wonderful thing to think that too. This is what allows things like reincarnation. I mean, this is the great thing to me. I think that I absolutely have 100% belief in reincarnation. I really do. The problem is that we live in a world where a consciousness construct where we believe in space-time is actual real. The space-time is completely fake. Everything, that's just our brain processing the universe into a compartment that moves at a certain speed so we can deal with it. Or we couldn't understand the universe otherwise, because it's all happening at the same time now, forever, not at the same time. But this is the madness, the not the madness, the chaos of it all. But that chaos is also beautiful because look, if it's all to play for, it's all to win. That's how I feel about it. It's like when you face a demon, you go mad, or you can say, what does this mean?
Fair enough. And here's another really good one from the text in line. Thomas, you've written several books on the occult, magic, sorcery, and some of the darker side of things. You've experienced some difficult things on your journey, obviously. What would you say was one of the most difficult experiences with magic that you've experienced?
My house split in two.
Your house split in two?
Split in two, yeah.
How does that earthquake?
Split. No, just bang one day. It was like an extreme form of what Carl Jung called catalytic exteriorization. Literally, I built up a charge that was so strong that the back of the house fell off, and a bookshelf, an enormous bookshelf that was screwed to a wall, fell over with about 200 books on it, and the house actually twisted and bent. And that was just a catalytic exteriorization phenomena, an extreme form. I was writing the book Sorcery, the Invocation, the Strangeness. I was built up a very high, strong charge inside myself. And I just basically heard bump, and then I went out and I looked at the back in my house, and there was water spewing all over the yard. And it was the pipes that had been crushed when the wall fell down on top of them, and the foundations collapsed. And it happened at a moment I was very heavily in the idea of, and lost and trapped in a very powerful psychic moment, and it literally came out of my diaphragm like a laser beam, and then bang, this happened. That happened, and a few other things have happened like that. When I was a kid, I was nearly killed by a car bomb, and I wasn't nearly killed by a car bomb. I was near a car bomb. I shouldn't say that. That's not what happened. I was near a car bomb, and I can remember I was 8 or 10. I can't remember the age I was. Literally walking home, trying to comprehend how someone could do that, and it was the thoughts that a young child should not have, but at the same time it pushed me into consciousness very quickly. So yeah, they would be the pivotal things.
Okay. When you talk about you built up a charge, you were using Jungian dream methods to do that, huh? That's fascinating. So can you?
Oh no, it wasn't deliberate. It had just been happened. Whenever I don't write books until I have built up this charge inside me, I actually become almost the book itself. So I become that, and I'm literally so full of psychic energy and feelings and inclinations and all kinds of things. I'm drawing sketches. I'm frantically noting my dreams, and I build myself up. And it feels like being high, but it also feels like being not in control a little bit. And it takes one thing to release that. And that's what happened. The catalytic exteriorization phenomena is absolutely real, because I saw it when I was a kid. A school teacher screaming in school, and a blackboard split down the middle. Not from the sound of his voice. He was just so angry at, teaching us little bastards, driving him crazy, that he had the same experience. And we all hear these stories of people who were extremely tense and a glass exploded. It just so happened that I had attenuated my psychic nervous system up into that level. But yeah, that's the most intense one that ever happened.
So
I've seen entities and all these kinds of things as well. I was attacked by an entity when I was 17 that jumped on my back and beat me up and left me with bruises. I've seen like disembodied heads floating and things like that. So but now literally, a super demon could appear in front of me. I don't think I'd be frightened at all. I'd be more curious. It all comes down to your reaction towards things.
I am completely shocked by everything that you just said, man. Your house split in two. You've seen floating heads. You've seen you got beat up by an entity. What? Okay, So let's start with the entity, if you don't mind. an entity. I was just on the guest last night was a parapsychologist who's saying that this is all in the mind, although we don't understand what the mind is. And to some extent, I would agree. But how can it be psychosomatic when you're physically getting busted? Like, were you getting punched in the face? That kind of beating.
I was able to taste the sweat on its fingers when it pushed in my mouth trying to suffocate me.
So that
I could
can't
feel
be
the
psychosomatic.
I could feel the hairs on its fingers. Yeah, I was 17 years old. I was lying face down in Dublin in my parents' house, and I woke up and I looked around, and there was this thing that looked like a monkey in the corner of the room. And if you've seen a painting by a famous Swiss artist called Henry Fuseli, it's called The Dream or The Nightmare. It's a woman lying on her back, and on top of her chest is a monkey. And there's a horse behind her. Well, I saw that monkey, that whatever that monkey is, I saw it. It was in the corner of the room. Now, what was interesting was it was looking around. It was looking around to see, as if it was looking or trying to lock on something. And then it like it didn't know where it was. And then I'm looking behind that and thinking I'm having a dream. And then it made eye contact with me, let out this unbelievable scream, landed on my back and started pounding on my back, putting its fingers into my mouth, trying to suffocate me until I got it and threw it off and it vanished into nowhere. Okay. I went to have a shower, and later on that day, I felt sore on my back and I had bruises. Was it psychosomatic? Who knows? Was the attack real? Oh yeah, it was.
Well, the experience was real, right? I mean, obviously, yeah.
That's the best way to put it. The experience was real. What the experience is, that's what I've been trying to find out ever since.
Okay, so would you wouldn't recommend some of the experiments you've done for people with children, right? Obviously, I was just thinking, what if I had a house? What if my kids were in the house and the thing split?
Or no, God, no, you should not be doing things like that if you've got children or people in the house who would be afraid of those things. Go rent go to a hotel room and do it. That's a great place to do magic, or hotel rooms, because they're all full of psychic energy from all the things that go on in hotel rooms. But this is why magic is big in prisons. A lot of magic goes on in prisons. A lot of prisoners practice the occult, and for that reason. But no, don't be doing that in front of your loved ones at home. That's irresponsible, unless they're okay with it and they're into that kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
But definitely not around shit with you've got children in the house. You should not be doing it. That's very irresponsible. Go do it somewhere else.
Now, do you talk about the details of these operations in any of your books a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, only a few things. Basically, how I create a sigil and the way I go about it, and the whole philosophical thing on cursing and hexing people. I don't curse people. Not because I'm Mr. Wonderful and Light. Right. It's because it's too risky. It's too risky. It probably doesn't bounce back on you. I think that's a thing that maybe comes out of Christianity and things like Wicca. I think more likely the ethical thing gets passed on to children. If you curse someone, this is another thing. If you curse someone, this is why you have all these idiot Wiccans who are cursing their ex-husbands, and they have kids, and suddenly the kid gets motor neuron disease, after the husband has had cancer. This is the problem with cursing, is it definitely seems to run in the family.
Wow. Yeah. So I've got, I want to ask you a few more questions about some of this stuff. I don't know if you're willing to stay for a few more minutes with us or not, because I kind of wish I would have asked you about this. Well, I'll tell you what I'll ask, because I can take a break whenever I want as I run the station. I get a lot of questions, Thomas, about defense. People are scared. It's like they want to put their toe in the water of magic, but they don't want to do anything stupid. They don't want to hurt themselves. They don't want to cause any problems in their life. And I tell them about my experiences with it and to take it seriously, because these forces are real. That's what I tell them. But I'm afraid I've opened up a can of worms now that I'm going to be responsible for, because I've talked about the subject and now everybody wants to do things. So when it comes to dabbling, what are your thoughts on that? Go for it. Don't, just Give us some advice on that.
You know, everyone's story is different. You know, some people join the military because they need a job. Some people join the military because they're interested in developing a career in the military. Other people join because they want to kill people. Others want to travel. There's lots of reasons for doing it. Just make sure that your reason is sound. That's all. Just make sure it's sound. If you want to learn magic so you can hurt a person, that's probably not a good road to go down, because it shows that you haven't worked on yourself enough as a person, that you still want to do that. If you want to learn magic to make your life more interesting, I think that's a great one. If you want to do magic to make your life more simple, like I said, it's almost like putting oil on a rusty hinge. It really does make life easier if you do it properly. But this whole thing of being afraid of it is probably counterproductive, because automatically you're putting yourself in a situation where if there is pathological entities out there, they know you're scared and they're going to come for you because you're just scared. So the best thing is to probably not do it in that case. If you're scared, just don't do it. I mean, get a hobby, you know, build model airplanes or something.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. That's the thing. You don't have to. Yeah. I think people feel like, well, there's magic out there, so there's secrets I want to know. And I want to do them, but I'm afraid. Well, you know.
Well, things like art is a great middle ground. You know, express yourself artistically. That's a great middle ground.
Good. Fantastic. All right. And then I think one more question I would ask you is, when it comes to defense, I know you talked about the conscious firewall. Should people even get into this? Because this has been a big question for me. If you don't believe in curses, or if you don't mess with magic, you don't even want to touch the occult, should you even bother to do psychic self-defense? Because you're already kind of walking around, in my opinion, half asleep that the stuff exists anyways. And if you give in to fear easily, it's just going to cause problems. You know, Manly P. Hall wrote a book about that, how you get into this kind of paranoia state where you feel like you're constantly cursed all the time. And I get that question more than anything in the world, is how do I protect myself psychically? And I've sent them links and books and everything you can name it, and the questions just keep coming. I don't know what to do.
No,
I think, go ahead.
Understand the rules of engagement, like anything else in life. Okay, if a woman wants to find a relationship, she's not going to find it in a singles bar. You don't go there, right? You don't go there, right? You apply the same rules to magic. You want to go for a one-night stand and a meaningless encounter, you go to a singles bar. But if you go there expecting to fall in love or meeting the man of your dreams, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Same thing with magic, the rules of engagement. Decide what you want to study or advance along the magical path for. What you want to be there for. What you want from it. Do you want to grow as a person? Do you want to develop yourself spiritually? A very good one. That's a very good reason to get into magic. Do you want to break from your Christian programming or your Abrahamic programming? Another very good reason to get into it. Do you want to develop your art? Do you want to understand the world a little better? Do you want to understand life a little better? Do you want to understand yourself a little better? Yes, you can do it for that reason. They're all valid reasons. Do you want to do it to have control and power over people? Don't do it. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I can stick around as long as you want. I'm enjoying this.
Okay, well, yeah, we can just do one more segment here because I know you're a busy guy. But, I mean, it's been a long time since I've had a guest like this on the program, honestly, that's well, you're an entertaining guy and very informative. I don't want to kiss too much here, blow too much smoke. We'll be right back with Thomas Sheridan. Stay with us.
Lighting the Void Radio.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves stripped bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me bubble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology, and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon, and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. truth. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Well, we've been given a gift. Thomas Sheridan has decided to stay and hang out with us for a little bit longer. That's fantastic, because I'm sure there's a lot more questions that I got on my mind. Oh, you talked about so many crazy things a while ago. I think a million questions ran through my mind, especially with all of the experiences that you had. And I just want to ask you one more question about entities. These things... the way that I look at this, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong about the idea of it, I don't know what to call it. People call it the collective unconscious, people call it the astral realm, whatever you want to call it. I believe that there's this realm that all of our minds are connected. And in this realm, these entities kind of move around and do things and play with us. And sometimes they put thoughts in our head that really don't really belong to us, but sometimes we accept them and we shouldn't. Or we reject them, kind of thing. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like the term the collective unconscious. I think I've always kind of liked that. It seems to work for me. Yeah, it's as Lovecraft called them, the phantasms of our slumbers. Yeah, there's many unseen realms that are beyond the human consciousness and comprehension, and they impact upon us. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. There would be super consciousness. That'll probably be on us and microconsciousness below us. For who knows? I saw a funny meme the other day that maybe plants or trees are farming us because when we die, they can take our nutrients and help them grow. Maybe we are the livestock for plants. So, there's lots of ways of looking at it and contemplating it. But I've always liked the term and the idea behind the collective unconscious. It's always appealed to me greatly. It feels right.
Do you think that they can... Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story, and then you can tell me your thoughts on it. I'll tell it really quick. So I got a friend of mine who started doing just magic work. I'll just put it that way. And he told me, he said, I've been doing this for a couple of months now, and before, nobody ever noticed me. They wouldn't even talk to me. But I came out of the grocery store the other day, and people were staring at me with just weird looks, Like, and I said, what kind of weird looks? Like, they noticed smiling, and he was like, no. They gave me looks like almost, it was weirdly evil almost. And I'm like, I wonder if entities in the astral realm are starting to notice you, because he's just been doing basic things, LBRPs, middle pillar, charging up and vanishing and stuff. And I wonder if that gets their attention, if that makes any sense.
Nope, he's reading that all wrong. He should be absolutely delighted. What he's done is the primary object of magic, and he's developed his charisma. He is being noticed because he has a greater psychic field around him because of his operational workings. He has developed his charisma. This is really the main reason you should practice magic, is to build up your charisma. When you have a lot of charisma, that comes from a Greek term meaning the grace of the gods, you stand out in a crowd. The reason why he's getting those looks is not because he's carrying entities around in him, it's because they're jealous. They are looking at someone who is now human plus slightly. And it makes them feel inferior. He has, to use the frame, it.
And see, that's what fascinated me about it, because he's only just doing the beginning stuff, but has been doing it for a few months now. I mean, disciplined, like on the adorations, everything, you know.
If his energetic field pulsating from his nervous system is absolutely on fire now compared to what it had been. And this is what people are noticing. They're seeing someone who's closer to a god than a human being. And that's not hyperbole. That's actually what it is. Wow.
So what, in your mind, then, what are we capable of here as humans? I mean, I know that's a big question, because, I mean, that's kind of like saying, well, what's outside the nothing? But we are capable of quite a bit more than what we are being told about, right? I mean, we're capable of quite a bit more.
Well, if you can develop your charisma and keep developing your charisma, you're capable of just about anything. You can make your dreams come true. You can change the world. I mean, the store is full of stories of people. Look at someone like Napoleon Bonaparte. He was just a nobody from Corsica. And yet he had enough charisma when the entire French army were sent down by the king to arrest them. They couldn't do it. And they gave their loyalty to him and rejected the king. This is charisma on an astronomical level, to have that level of charisma. And yeah, you can change the course of the world. What can't you do if you develop it enough? What can't you do is the question.
Right. Because there's a couple of magicians say, well, you know, all things are possible in the circle. And then others say, well, things are possible within reason. I don't know about that. Especially with the stories you just told me, it's starting to make me think, I think quite a bit's possible. Right? I mean,
well, what is reason? Reason is just, well, I mean, what one person's reason is another person's supernaturalism. If someone who's grew up on a desert island who's never been anywhere, and you showed them a mobile phone, well, that's reason to you, but it's supernatural to them. So where's the demarcation line? Where's the baseline for reason? Reason, you know, it has been used to justify dropping atomic bombs on cities. Where is the baseline for reason? One man's reason is another man's supernaturalism or absurdity. You know, how do you reason something like satire? What is the purpose of satire? How do you sit down and scientifically quantify satire? You can't. Yet we know that things like South Park and Monty Python and the young ones and many other satirical things that have happened through history have had an enormous impact on human culture. How do you scientifically quantify the bard? You can't. So where is the integrity of reason when it comes to that? It doesn't exist. There's forces and things to do with our personality and our human experience that are outside the bounds of reason, and that's okay. That's just how it is. Reason to me is just like almost like okay, there's things that you can say are not true by observation. There's things you can, but when you see things that appear in front of your own eyes, you cannot deny what you see with your own eyes. We're not talking about philosophical constructs. We're not talking about inclinations. We're not talking about fate. We're talking about observable corporeal reality. What do you say? It didn't exist. It didn't happen. You look at something like Fatima, the miracle of Fatima in Portugal back at the turn of the century. That was witnessed by 80,000 people. It was witnessed by communists who came to say that the whole thing was fake. It was seen by people 20, 30 miles away. Now, we're all told it was a miracle of the sun performed by the Virgin Mary. If you read the history of what happened at the time, it was far more complex than that, and it was closer to a kind of what you call a fairy or an ET type experience, but it still happened. Yet we're told in reason it didn't happen, even though there's photographs of it, 70,000 witnesses, including people who went there to laugh at it. And it was also predicted in 2 newspapers by spiritual groups a couple of months before it happened. Doesn't fall under the reason, still happened.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? So when your house split in 2, did you think? Because I feel like if that happened to me, I would feel, well, I don't know how attached to the house, how much it cost, and if you owned it, but I would feel like, wow. I mean, when things like that happen, does it give you a feeling of like you feel like a god almost, or you feel, I know that sounds crazy, but I think that's what would go through me, like an intense megalomania might go through me for a minute and just be like, I don't know. That's what I'm afraid of that. I don't want to become, maybe I've got my own hang-ups about it.
The first thing was, wow. The second thing is, this is going to bankrupt me for years.
Yeah.
And if that's not magic, I don't know what is.
Right. Like you said earlier, once things are done, they can't be undone. So yeah, that's very true.
Welcome to the arena.
You got, a lot of stuff you've been working on lately. My producer tells me that you just got back from the States and you've been working on a project about the people that were killed in the Salem witch trials and how we've kind of just passed over that. Like it's not that big of a deal, or don't really, some people say it didn't even exist. Do you think that's part of what we were talking about earlier in the program, where we have this society that is built upon some type of psychopathic, function when it comes to society?
Salem was a horrible place. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. There was nice architecture and everything, but it was a horrible energy there. It was absolutely palatably evil. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to get out of the place as soon as I arrived.
Really?
The town is famous for what? Religious persecution, Christians murdering innocent people. That's what it's famous for. So does it hold its hands up and say guilty? It goes, no, let's get all witchy poo. Let's pretend. And they even have, I'm not kidding you, Joe, in that town they have a statue of a witch, a bronze statue that looks like Tabitha from, remember the TV show Bewitched in the 60s?
Yes. Love that.
It's so twee, it's so goofy with a pointy witchy poo hat. The town is full of these like cosplay Wiccans who walk around with thinking they're all magical and everything. The whole place has an energy that's shocking, and it has nothing to do with magic. The bookstores are terrible. You go in there looking for magical text, or any kind of magic books, you can almost find none. There things like the Secret and all these New Age, Hay House type publications. It's awful, and ultimately it's the example of what we were talking about earlier on. The shadow has not been serviced. What has happened is that they've tweeified or cutesified religious persecution of people, of religious murders, and they should be ashamed of it, and they should reconcile it. And if they were to go down the magical thing, they should be doing it properly, not turning it into a Disney theme park. I'm going to make a prediction. At some point in the future, there's going to be a mass killing or a mass shooting or some horrific event. I'm not saying I want it to happen or anything like that. There will be something horrible will happen in Salem, Massachusetts. I guarantee you. It will be the shadow. Yeah, it's the shadow's not. The shadow has been so badly denied. This one, people say the curse of the ancestors. What it really is, denial of the shadow. It's like a family secret that's not being accepted. I guarantee you, something within in time, something horrible is going to happen in that town. You mark my words, it's coming.
So it gives you and I think you feel this way, and I would too, because you have a very strong background in the old religion, which, some people call paganism, but it's really the old religion. It's one of the oldest. And to see it's almost like they're making a mockery of a sacrifice that was horrible in a very Disneyland kind of way. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, that's the whole history of Christianity. Why do you think the Catholic Church was destroyed by all these pedophile scandals? That was because of the way the Christians destroyed, murdered, slaughtered, and oppressed the early pagans. That's where that comes from. Read a book called The Darkening Age by Catherine Nixby, an Oxford professor. The book came out last year, and it just shows what a monstrous murder cult the early Christians were. They were ISIS on steroids, and that's why you're a Christian today, or not you, but that's why people listen to this. Why you identify with Christianity today is because the Christians slaughtered, butchered, murdered, and outlawed and made prohibitions against your pagan ancestors. That's the only reason why. No other reason. The sword. You were made Christian by someone having their head chopped off in the name of Jehovah and Jesus. That's why you're a Christian. Now, I identify, to use that awful modern phrase, but I identify as a Luciferian pagan. My ancestors were Indo-European pagans. The only God I've ever come face to face with that I can actually say was Lucifer, in terms of his archetypal form. And this is what I align with. I have absolutely a complete rejection of all Abrahamic religions. I'm not saying they're all bad. They're okay if you come from the Middle East, your origins are in the Middle East, if you're Jewish, Muslim, or an Eastern Christian. Maybe that is your path, and that's okay. I'm just saying my ancestors didn't come from, some pretty unimaginative real estate on, the Eastern Mediterranean. So why should I relate to that? My ancestors, they lived amongst the forests and woodlands and rocky coastlines and crashing seashores and blazing sun and cold winters and seasonal changes in the European world. That's where my archetypes were gestated within my consciousness. That's what lives within my DNA. And if more people were to actually honor their actual spiritual ancestry properly, rather than believing that they're somehow connected to a Jehovah Sky Fairy in the Middle East that they have no ethnic or other connection to, they'd find themselves feeling, and this is another reason why a lot of magic doesn't work. There are people who are from a Western consciousness, and by that I mean Indo-European consciousness. They're practicing basically a Hebrew form of mysticism, and maybe that's why they're not getting the instant results they do, where if they start stepping into things like a chaos version of paganism, they'll find that they will get, and when I say paganism, I'm talking about Wicca. Wicca is not paganism. Wicca is basically Kabbalism with a few bits and pieces.
Golden Dawn.
Yeah, that's all that is. There's nothing to do with paganism. It's laughable that Wiccans even call themselves pagans. Although it can be a good stepping stone into real paganism, so I'm not saying it's all bad, but that's all that is. That's all Gardner was doing when the English witchcraft laws were abolished. He was a British civil servant who was sent out there with the specific aim of making sure that the English masses didn't return to paganism. They continued worshipping a kind of an Abrahamic magic. That was his purpose. But yeah, that's the thing. Honor your ancestral, magical, and spiritual tradition, and you will find that a lot of this stuff comes much easier for you.
Okay. So
I don't mean in a chauvinistic sense, like I'm better because my ancestors worshipped
No.
Thor.
You just know where you come from.
Yeah, you just know where you come from. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I know some people would take it that way, like, wow, you're being awful self-righteous or whatever. But it's like I can tell. I've say those statements about my upbringing too. Like I know where I come from.
I got white skin. I can't sit in the sun all day. I'll get sunburn and eventually get melanomas. It's the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Same thing. I'm a paddy. I can't physically survive in the deserts of Arabia, but neither can my spirit. Can't work with that system either. It's not that I'm better. I'm just different, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, because and I'll just tell everybody that's thinking that kind of stuff. We've had talks off the air. He knows kind of what I do, and I don't feel that way. You feel that way towards me. You knew I grew up Western and Christian, and I started noticing certain things in the biblical texts and a lot of the Hebrew texts that related to some of the old religion teachings. And I'm like, why is this in here?
Well, because
that's how it started.
a lot of the good parts of the Christian and the Old Testament comes from Canaanite paganism. You know, I mean, that's where it comes from. It comes from Canaanite paganism. Yeah, especially the whole thing of the invocation of angels. That's definitely a Canaanite thing. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, funny enough you say that. I was watching a movie with Lady Ann the other night, and it was a chick flick, and I was like, I don't want to watch a chick flick, but it was a movie about the Red Tent. It's called The Red Tent, and if it was actually a very, very good movie, and it showed how the women would worship the old gods, the old Canaanite gods, and it showed how the men would just flip out, beat them, you know. They would do all kinds of stuff if they were caught doing that, but that's where their systems came from. That's where their beliefs came from, and they had real strong beliefs in a sisterhood and how babies should be born naturally, and it was a lot to having to do with nature. It does seem really like some force just came in and just took over, right? No more of this nature stuff, no more of this worship me, no gods before me type thing, right? It does feel that way.
The monotheism, one God, and monotheism is the perfect control system for the psychopathic control grid. One God in heaven with one law equals one God on earth with one law. One pope, one president, one czar, one Caesar, one this, that, and the other. Absolute power. Where you have a polytheistic mindset, you see, and where there's multiple gods, you're more likely to see the world in archetypal forms. Where this is the great thing about paganism, is that, especially in the European paganism, is that somebody in Ireland who's a Celtic pagan can have a conversation about gods and archetypes with a Hindu, and they'll find that they're very similar. Same an Iberian Celtic pagan, or a Nordic Germanic pagan, an Anglo-Saxon pagan. Even though they have different names for the gods and the goddesses, they're archetypally, they're all so similar. So you have like the Morrigan is similar to the Valkyrie in the Nord. The Morrigan is the Irish raven goddess, is similar to the Valkyries in the Nordic tradition, is similar to the Dhumavavate in the Hindu tradition. You have Indra, the thunder god. You have Thor. They're all the same thing. They just have regionalized names. Like you wouldn't have a snow god in India, you know, because of the environmental elements of that. But you will find that in the Himalayas, up among the mountains, where the snow does fall, there is a snow god. And you'll find it's very similar in the idea to the ice giants of the Nordic world. And it goes on. You live in a desert place, you don't have any relationship towards a sea god. You don't have that. And so it's always relates to you. This is why it's so ultimately connected to nature, because it will archetypally embody the natural, cosmic, and psychological forces of your tribal structure, or yourself, within the prevailing environment in which you exist. And this is the beauty of paganism. It is a bespoke spiritual system designed for who you are, where you are, and what you are, not from another part of the world, another culture, and another social and environmental dynamic impacting upon it. Being a pagan means you are what nature has best provided for you on a physical level, and then you transfer that into a spiritual level. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's a good question too in the chat. What if you're mixed? You're very mixed, and all magic. Do you have any magic from your ancestors? Is that possible? How do you use that power if you have, you know, have a very, very mixed background?
Well, then you're very, very blessed because you have it all.
See, there you go. Right, you can tap into anything.
And look at say New Orleans and the Creole magic and all the voodoo. They have it all. They have Celtic magic, they have French magic, they have African magic. Go for it. Pick your groove, jump in and enjoy it. I have friends in England who are of Nigerian and Irish background, and they're voodoo pagans, and good for them, you know. Roll with it, enjoy it. It's all there for you to grab. You're lucky.
I remember the first time I saw a pagan ritual in my life. I flew out to Las Vegas, born a Christian, was looking into the Western system. I flew out to meet some people in Nevada, and they did a pagan ritual in front of me. And at first I felt it's for somebody like me, it was just kind of weird and strange and odd. And why are they circling? But now I know what they were doing. They were circumambulating, right? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And I can tell you to this day, I would rather hang around a group of pagans. I just have more fun. I feel it's more conducive to my spirit in a lot of ways. I'm not making a judgment. It just feels that way.
Well, if you look at paganism, in all the Indo-European paganism, the gods are fully accessible. In Nordic paganism, you can go have a beer with Thor.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Right. Earlier you brought up, you said that you consider yourself a Luciferian. Was it a pagan Luciferian or Luciferian pagan? I guess if you had to categorize it.
Yeah, I'd say I'm an Indo-European Luciferian pagan. I'd say if I was to categorize it. Okay. Now the first thing is Lucifer. We have to identify what people. Oh, the devil. That's a complete mistake. Lucifer is an Indo-European classical god. It's also known as Phosphor. Lucifer is the brother of Diana of the Hunt and the son of Aurora, the goddess of the dawn. And he's an Indo-European god relating to, classical Indo-European god, pertaining to the planet Venus. Now, the planet Venus has a very special relationship with Earth. As it moves through the cosmos together, the two planets form a pentagram, and that's why the apple was forbidden inside the biblical tradition, because if you cut an apple down the middle, you get a pentagram, and that was Lucifer. Now, the reason why people think that Lucifer is the devil of the Hebrew Bible is because of a mistranslation of the King James Bible. The King James Bible is that's called the King James Bible. What it really is, the English Talmud. That's really what it is. If you practice that's what it was, because what happened was you had fanatics, particularly the Lutherans and also the Puritans, who didn't believe that Catholicism was Christianity because there was too much paganism. And that's absolutely true. Catholicism is mostly paganism with a little bit of Hebrew in it, but it's mostly paganism. It mostly follows pagan traditions and pagan holidays, Ostara, Easter, Yule, Christmas. It goes on and on and on. Halloween, All Saints Day. They wanted to get back to a more Hebrew version of Christianity. So they invented this thing called the King James Bible, which they took basically all the pagan stuff out. So it really should be called the King James Talmud. So if you are a Presbyterian who follows the King James Bible, you are basically a Talmudic European. That's basically what you are. You're not practicing Christianity. You're practicing, the purest form of Christianity is Second Temple, the rabbinical Judaism. That's all. Jesus Christ wasn't starting a new religion. He was just another rabbi. That's where, if he existed, which he probably didn't, he was titled as Rabbi Yeshua. Yeah. Now, so don't, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm just saying this is just the truth. You just haven't sat down and thought about it. But the term Lucifer was a mistranslation in the King James text from Hebrew. They were trying to rush out this Bible really quickly, this Protestant Bible, and they mistranslated a Hebrew word as being the Indo-European god Lucifer. And that's why people mistakenly to this day believe that Lucifer is the devil of the Bible. Lucifer is a classical pagan god connected to the planet Venus. And this is why we have the pentagram, because the planet, the Earth and the Venus, that dance through space, creates a pentagram.
And that's what, okay, this is where I'm glad we went here, because this is important to me. Very important.
Yeah, and it's also very important that it's also a good one to indicate that there's some other force. I don't care if you're an agnostic or an atheist, but you have to admit that there's something very bizarre about the fact that the Earth creates this dance through the cosmos, through the cycles, and creates a pentagram. You have to admit that cannot be a perfect, absolutely perfect pentagram. You have to. This is why you have to admit that there's something incredible to that. There's something going on there. You have to. On an instinctual level, humans knew this before they had the ability, before cosmology existed. and they had the ability to use trigonometry in order to work out the calculations. They somehow knew it. Where did that come from? The field, from the dream world, from the nocturnal slumbers, the phantasms of our slumbers. This is where they came from. This is why there's an instinctual connection with the planet Saturn. Saturn, to our ancient ancestors, was a dot in the sky. They couldn't see it, didn't have they just knew it was a planet, because planets had different. Yeah, they just had orbits. But planets, they had no idea how absolutely strange Saturn is, and they associate it with Kronos, the god of time, who also carries aside a blade, a semicircular blade that cuts down almost like the tarot card of the death, and it constantly recycles the universe. And yet, lo and behold, they had no idea that there was a ring around Saturn that looks like a blade. And more amazingly, on top of it is a hexagram. On top of the North Pole of Saturn is this bizarre thing that shouldn't exist in nature, that forms what they call the Star of David, the hexagram, connected to the whole thing of the planet El, and the Hebrews. And then also now we've discovered that there's some kind of weird magnetic field that extends from that hexagram and connects directly to the sun, which regulates our seasonal time cycles. How did our ancient ancestors know this without spaceships and cosmology and physics and things like Hubble telescopes and radar and radio telescopes? It came by means of their dreams. This is so you've got to admit that these things exist. If you're a hardcore skeptic and an atheist, you cannot deny that our ancient ancestors knew there were attributes about these planets that actually turned out to be real things, that they actually were. This is how these planets function. They just conveyed them as archetypes and as metaphor and allegory because they didn't have the scientific language, the vernacular in which to frame them, but they were still 100% right.
Man, that's fascinating. Everybody, I've talked to so many people about this. From Jordan Maxwell to God knows who I've had on the show talking about this, and I've said, look, a lot of guests have come on here saying, well, there's stuff going on that you just don't know, and they get into etymology and the symbolism of words and try to explain, well, it's all a curse and all English language is magical. And yes, I get it. But tell me why that both Christ and Lucifer, supposedly in the Bible, call themselves or relate to the morning star. And I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I never get an answer. Even, what's his name? The big conspiracy that started everything conspiracies, wrote Beyond a Pale Horse, Bill Cooper. He even started his presentations with that very statement. I don't understand why Christ relates to the Lucifer character in the Bible. It was a big mystery to him. So that's because they didn't do their research. I did. It's as simple as that. These people, I'm not putting down other people's work because everyone has a valuable part to play. Sure. These people are all infected by Christianity. Yep. A lot of them are theosophists as well. They're infected by it. And the simple answer was, it was a mistranslation in the King James Bible. That's it. This has been known for years. The biblical scholars and rabbinical scholars have spoken about this. All my life I've known this. And yeah, they're still spouting a mistranslation. That's the reason why Bill Cooper didn't know is because he didn't do his research. Why? Because he was still praying to this Middle Eastern sky fairy like the rest of them and believing it was true. The reason why Jordan Maxwell goes on about it is he still points us towards the Middle East and say, that is your destiny. That is your origin. It's not, because there's the absurdity of the entire spiritual traditions of this entire planet is reduced down to a small piece of unattractive real estate in the Middle East. It's the most absurd thing you've ever heard. Unattractive piece of real estate. Very nice.
But just, overseen by a Hebrew spacefarer. Now that's the absurdity of it. And when you look at that discounts all Native American spirituality, Indo-European pagan spirituality, Asian, Tanist, African, Inuit. It denies them all. You know, you talk to people today and they somehow believe that religion began with the Bible. We have been sold a bill of goods here. We have been given something that is, and told, this is the narrow limitations of it. Now, Bill Cooper, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, or Jordan Maxwell, but they were working within the limitations of the biblical framework. It's like having 2 letters of the alphabet and trying to create a full dictionary of words. You have to look at everything. And this is what makes the work of people like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell so monumental and seismic, is because they encapsulated all the spiritual traditions, even though Carl Jung towards the end got a bit Christ-possessed. Look at the work of particularly Joseph Campbell. It's mainstream, yes, so what? He was at a PBS show, so what? It's still the real thing, and it's still the way to go. Comparative mythology doesn't just mean the Bible, it means everything.
And so this is the reason why, would you say this is the reason why we see Lucifer as one of the 4 kings of hell in a lot of grimoires? You know, you got Satan, Belial, Lucifer, and what's the other one? Baal, I don't know, the 4 kings of hell, and some of those grimoires, what I've tried to explain to people, were written by people with a Christian background. Some of them were, like Eliphas Levi. They were in the Catholic Church. They put Lucifer as one of the 4 kings of hell, is what I'm saying. What are your thoughts on that?
But that doesn't mean they can't be invoked. I know this sounds paradoxical, but it's the same reason why in chaos magic you can invoke Lovecraftian or superheroes. The same, like John Keel in his book, I forget what it's called now. The guy who wrote the Mothman Prophecy wrote a very good book on just basic Fortean subjects. Mm-hmm. And he spoke about how the character, a radio show character called The Shadow, actually manifested in the Greenwich Village apartment building, where the guy who wrote the stories, The Shadow, was there day and night typing out these scripts for a radio play that everyone listened to in the dark with that light glowing. And then the shadow knows, became real in this apartment building. And to this day, apparently still seeing. It's because they created like what you want to use the word tulpa. I don't know if that's particularly correct. Yeah. But it came into manifestation. So if you're invoking the four lords of hell, they will appear. But that doesn't mean you're actually doing the real 4 lords of hell. You're just getting this resolution of some other kind of force of consciousness appearing to you in the way you want it to appear. It's just like the same thing. You look at fairies, right? If you look at Irish fairy folk traditions and things like being taken by the fairies, the tradition of that is identical in every way to alien abductions. It's just that in old Ireland, people went to fairyland. In modern world, they go to a spaceship, but it's the same experience. I mean, you used the word earlier on, experience. That's the way. It's the experiential aspect that's important. That makes it real, not the actual reality itself.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, then let's look at since we've got just a few minutes left here before we end the program. I talked to a guy on the show who told me this statement, and I wondered what your view is on this. Look, he said, everybody is practicing magic, whether they like it or not. But, and you hear that from everybody, right? He said, but there are few practicing magicians. Would you agree with that?
100%. And there's also practicing magicians who don't know they're magicians. They work in rock music, they work in pop music, they work in painting, they work in sculpture, they work in video gaming, they work in all kinds of artistic creative fields. They are instinctual magicians. Like H.P. Lovecraft, who spent his life protesting that there was no such thing as the supernatural. He wrote a book with Harry Houdini called The Cancer of Superstition, and yet he was about one of the most powerful occultists that ever lived. He was a reluctant one, but he was an occultist, and everyone's a magician. It's just that everyone is practicing magic. Absolutely, 100%. Everyone is practicing magic, but there's very few magicians. That's absolutely bang on. You can do it instinctually, which everyone is doing, or you can do it proactively, with direct involvement to see if you can make it work for you in some way. And that's absolutely 100% true. I totally agree with that.
And is that how one can build their conscious firewall? I would say you don't have to. I think just becoming aware of these forces, the mentalities, the electric currents that you talk about, that these just becoming aware of things like that doesn't, even without practicing anything, gives you a bigger sense of freedom and power.
Without sounding like a narcissistic egomaniac, let me tell you something. Anyone who's listened to this show right through from the beginning to the end has everything they need in this show to develop their conscious firewall, dealing with their shadow, working with their dreams. Something as simple as, you now know that Lucifer is not the devil. You're no longer afraid of him. Your conscious firewall now has a new barrier in front of it. All these things, understanding things. This whole show, you will now have, by the time this show is over tonight, you will have added a new layer to your conscious firewall. It's proper research. Instead of reading Bill Cooper talking about, I don't know why Lucifer and Jesus are the same, go out and investigate. You suddenly find out, well, it's a mistake in the King James Bible. Suddenly, that issue is solved. You've got a conscious firewall. That issue does not have to be dealt with. Move it out of the way, move on. But if you're working on a system of rubbish in, rubbish out, you're always going to be, be very specific. Do not be carried away by fads and trends. There's so many people, they watch the latest YouTube videos and they automatically believe the latest conspiracy theory or the latest nonsense like the earth is flat because they want to believe it. They're spellbound. They're enchanted by the video. Walk away, think about it, and then go back. Don't automatically be impulsive, because that means you're now under the control of the pathological magicians. If things don't make sense, they don't make sense, but try and find out why they do at first. I mean, that's a classic example. Bill Cooper would probably still be alive today if he had properly researched who Lucifer actually was. If he had gotten rid of his biblical idea, he wouldn't have probably sacrificed himself to try and be a kind of conspiratorial Jesus. Now, I'm not putting down the man or what happened. That was a tragedy, and it's a terrible tragedy for his family. He had a child and a wife and everything. But it's ultimately he got measured response. If you see how unimportant the control system is, you're less likely to change it or to fight against it. You'll deal with it in your own way and you will glide through it. Instead of pushing against the waves, you're building a surfboard and you're sailing with it.
Yeah, I've got that whole vibe too when I listened to his Mystery Babylon series. And as he talked about the correspondences of the Egyptian gods and what they represented in nature and all of this stuff with that scary vibe voice he had,
But don't get me wrong.
It was a good show. I liked it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The man knew how to tell a story.
Yes, he did.
And he also did some phenomenal work as well. His work on 2001: A Space Odyssey. So let's not, Bill Cooper was a link in the chain, just like you're a link in the chain. I'm a link in the chain. All the other people on your show are link in the chains. But remember, the destination is not what matters. It's an eternal journey. There is no end game. There's only the development of energy and how it goes forward. And what happens is when you get the Christian mind, the whole idea comes in of salvation, what do they call it when everyone goes to heaven? The
rapture.
Rapture.
Right.
Yeah, the Armageddon, the end of the world. Where if you think in a Vedic or a pagan thing, you have cycles, the yugas. Even the Mayans had them. The same thing. You see things in cycles of consciousness. Then that way you're not waiting to be destroyed. You're just waiting to see what opportunities are unleashed for you next. That's all.
Yeah, and I used to think too, as he was telling that story, I'd be like, Bill, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
That it felt in my spirit that it felt good, and then he would be like, and then he would end it with, "Don't be fooled for a second, folks," like that. He would give it the real scary theater type thing, but it was a good show. I liked it.
And he, like I said, he got a lot of people interested in terms of subjects, just like David Icke did, just like in the political scene, Alex Jones did. and lots of other people out there who may, when you grow a bit or you learn a bit more, may seem a bit, that's a bit silly at the time. But it wasn't really silly because the neophyte has to start somewhere.
That's true. Totally true. We got a few minutes left here. Listen, I really appreciate you waking up, although I know you wake up early anyways, you told me, but just spending this much time with us here on Lighting the Void. So by all means, please tell us how we can find your work, any project speakings you got coming up, your YouTube channels, all of that, please.
Well, I had a great time on this show, and thank you very much for asking me on. I really enjoyed the program. It was great talking to a host that was so knowledgeable and, had knew what I was talking about fully. So that was great. So thank you for that. My website, the main one, is www.mossuponstones.com. That gives links to all the subjects I'm interested in, from magic to megaliths, mythology, and all the connections to my YouTube channel. My main YouTube channel is Open Source Occult TV. That's where I do my more serious work. And my quote-unquote professional YouTube channel, which I'll be having before Halloween or on Halloween, Samhain, a 90-minute documentary on the occult of H.P. Lovecraft, which will take that whole subject to a level that hasn't been taken to before. That's one of the reasons I was recently in America. I went over to Necronomicon in Providence, and that will be Beyond Room 313. And that's also going to be my home from now on. I'm going to be doing less and less vlogs in the future on Open Source Occult TV on YouTube, and moving into more sort of like better forms of produced videos on Beyond Room 313. As I'm fascinated by the art and the craft of filmmaking and documentary making. That fascinates me, and it's something I really want to develop my skill as going forward as a creator. And that's basically it. I mean, my latest book is about 2 years old now. Sorcery, the Invocation of Strangeness. That's a good book to start dealing with the subjects that we talked about here tonight, because I basically cover everything into that. My book on Irish and ancient European things, the Druid Code, if you're interested in megaliths and stuff like that, also mythology from Europe, that's the Druid Code. And then prior to that, I wrote a book that I've read again recently and forgotten how good it was, and I want to do a follow-up to it. It's about the rise of occultism in Germany leading up to the Third Reich, and that's called Walpurgis Night. And that's also, you can get them all through, if you go to www.mossuponstones.com, you will get to them there via a link that says bookshop.
Lulu,
and then also,
too, right? That's where you got some of your books?
Yeah, they're all on Amazon and everywhere else, Book Depository as well. You can even order them in bookshops, so you can get them anywhere. But Lulu is good for me because I get the best cut from them, and I'm not paying all the fees, all the middleman fees. But yeah, so that's it. And basically, if you just want to support me, just watch my videos and share them. That's it. That's all I ask from you. If you buy a book, that's brilliant. I'm grateful for that. But just create awareness. Get these subjects out there. That's the only reason I do this, is because, one, I absolutely love the things I do and I work about, and secondly, I just want to make life easier for other people, and that includes comedy and a satire and laughs and art and explaining things that can make their lives a little easier, because that's ultimately what it's about. We're here to enjoy life, have a laugh, and don't let the bastards grind us down. That's really what it's about.
Well said, sir. Thank you, Thomas Sheridan, for coming on the program. We'll have to do it again sometime. I'm fascinated with what you're going to talk about with the Reich and Germany. That's there's a lot of occult history that comes from that place. So maybe we can do it again sometime in the future. Thank you.
Yeah. If you want to look into that, I'd love to, because that's a subject I want to visit again, maybe in the next year or so, because there's been new developments have come up in recent years, and it ties into the whole growth in magic and occultism during that period. It brings in characters like Crowley, Osmond Spare, Jack Parsons, the whole thing. It all comes tearing into that as well. There was something happened in the world between 1888 and 1919, and it's a lot of the world we're living in today is because of that. If you want to study history, study the strangeness of that period.
Man, I hate we got to get out of here because I just told everybody that the other night. Look at the flatness of technological progression and then watch it turn a 90-degree angle during that period on a chart.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll see something fascinating for sure.
Yeah. From Jack the Ripper to the Munich uprising, something happened, and everything in the world today that we consider magical or fantastic gestated like it was a greenhouse at that point. Crowley, Lovecraft, Osmond Spare, Tesla, Jack Parsons, it all happened then. L. Ron Hubbard, it all happened then. There was something in that period that changed everything, and it was planted between those years, and it spiraled between then and 1947. And it's a period of history that, in an esoteric point of view, is just a fertile ground for exploration, discussion, and research.
Yes, you could have very well said. Thank you, Thomas, for coming on the program. We got to get out of here quick in a hurry. Please don't copy this without written permission. Same time, same channel tomorrow night. Give a big shout out to Pacho, Dan, Lady Ann, Eric Markham, Don, all of you guys in the chat room. Barbara, thank you for all your support. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Music was by Chronux, guitar by Bundy. I love all you Void Walkers. You guys are great. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.
My life is topsy-turvy like, and nothing turns out right. The hens won't lay and the hogs ain't slop, can't even sleep at night. The hounds keep a barking at the moon all night. I guess that's just my fate.